Su Sun sensed something was amiss with his son. At 5, it was quite normal for a child to repair a radio. At 6, being able to draw electrical schematics was somewhat acceptable. However, producing a quantum communication satellite seemed excessive. One day, several men in military attire arrived at their home. Instinctively, Su Sun shielded his son behind him, exclaiming, "My son is only 6. Please, do not frighten him." The leading colonel chuckled, "Mr. Su, we are here to protect Comrade Suja." Subsequently, Suja's name appeared at the top of the U.S. sanctions list. Su Sun was furious. He is still just a child. To which Suja replied calmly, "Dad, it's all right. The U.S. cannot sanction me. Their technology is not as advanced as mine." The nation urged, "Brother, stop hiding. It's time to reveal yourself. The country can withstand it." Chapter 1. Future Technology City. In the summer of 2003, Suja awoke. Roused by the oppressive heat, his head felt heavy, and his eyelids seemed weighted down. As he groggily opened his eyes, he was met with a yellowed ceiling. A large patch of peeling wall exposing dark, grimy cement beneath. The overhead fan creaked as it turned, its blades coated in dust, while the breeze it produced was stifling. He stared blankly for several seconds, the scene oddly familiar. Before he could fully comprehend, a loud banging echoed from downstairs, shaking the windows. "Su Sun, open the door. If you don't give us an explanation today, we will move the equipment." Suja jolted upright. Su Sun? That was his father's name. He glanced at his small, pudgy hands, the fingers disappointingly short. His fingers brushed against a faded vest that hung loosely on his slender frame. A sudden realization struck him. This scene was all too familiar. In 2003, he was 5 years old. That year, his father's factory was on the verge of collapse, drowning in debt, with creditors blocking their door daily. Had he been reborn? The banging intensified outside. Suja turned towards the door just as a man emerged from the inner room. In his 30s, the man appeared worn out, with deep-set eyes and a stubbly beard. His white shirt was yellowed from wear, and the collar was frayed. It was Su Sun, his father, 20 years younger. Unaware that his son had awakened, Su Sun clutched an old Nokia phone to his ear, his voice barely above a whisper. "Brother Wong, please grant me a few more days, just a few. I'll pay the interest first. Can you extend the principal for another month?" "Hello, Brother Wong?" The call ended abruptly. Su Sun stared at the phone in a daze for a moment before letting out a bitter smile and slipping it back into his pocket. Taking a deep breath, he opened the door. Outside stood 3 burly men, the leader bald with a gold chain around his neck, a clear indication of a loan shark. Spotting Su Sun, the bald man shoved him aside. "Su Sun, you've been hiding for 3 days. It's time to give us some answers." Su Sun stepped back, steadying himself against the doorframe. "Brotherly, I'm not hiding. I genuinely want to find the money." The bald man sneered. "Finding money? You've had a month. Where is it?" Su Sun opened his mouth, but could not find the words. The bald man peered inside and saw the old equipment in the workshop. He waved to his companions. "Move. Take this scrap metal away. It's worth whatever it can fetch." "No." Su Sun panicked and rushed to block them. "Brotherly, this equipment is all I have left. If you take it, my factory will be finished." The bald man shoved him aside. "Whether you finish or not is none of my concern. I just want my money." The 2 thugs charged into the workshop, beginning to dismantle the equipment. With tears welling in his eyes, Su Sun wanted to intervene, but was kicked in the knee by the bald man, collapsing to the ground. "Stay put," the bald man warned. "If you cause any more trouble, I'll make sure you get a beating too." Suja stood at the door, fists clenched tightly. He remembered this moment vividly. In his previous life, it was during this same month that the equipment was taken away, leading to the factory's auction. His father had never recovered, spending a decade hauling bricks at a construction site, afflicted with illness by his 40s. But in that life, he had no power to change the course of events. Now, in this life, Su Sun remained kneeling on the ground until one piece of equipment was taken away. The bald man and his crew departed, and he slowly rose, his knee scraped and bleeding. Yet he stood there, staring into the empty factory space in a daze. "Dad." Su Sun turned to see his son at the door, barefoot, his small face devoid of expression. He quickly wiped his face and forced a smile. "Son, you're awake? Are you hungry? Let Dad make you some noodles." He turned and entered the adjacent small office, which was merely a partitioned section containing a military bed, a rickety table, and an induction cooker. He rummaged through the drawer, finding the last few coins, 5 yuan and 30 cents. Gripping the crumpled money, Su Sun hesitated for a moment before stepping back outside. Suja did not follow. He understood his father was going to buy instant noodles, the kind that cost 1 yuan per pack, which had been his favorite as a child. Shortly after, a man in his 50s entered, clad in faded blue work clothes. His face etched with worry. It was Li Gong, the only remaining old employee of the factory. Upon seeing Suja, he forced a smile. "Little Zhe, where's your dad?" "He went out," Suja replied. Li Gong sighed and sat down on the steps at the entrance, lighting a cigarette. Suja approached and sat beside him. "Grandpa Li, is the factory about to close down?" Li Gong paused, looking down at the 5-year-old boy, and forced a smile. "What do you know about closing down?" Suja remained silent. Li Gong took a puff of his cigarette, gazing at the empty workshop, his voice low. "I've been with your dad for 10 years. This factory was built brick by him. It was once so prosperous, over 20 employees, orders that never ceased. Who would have thought it would collapse so suddenly?" He paused before continuing. "The bank is pressing hard. If the interest isn't paid soon, they will initiate foreclosure next month. Wages are owed for 3 months, and those creditors are suppliers, owed over 300,000. Your dad has been borrowing money everywhere this past month, but hasn't managed to secure a single cent. Little Zhe, your dad is in a tough spot." Listening to this, Suja felt a pang in his heart. He had been oblivious to these matters in his previous life. At 5, he only knew there was no money, and his father always wore a frown. He had no idea how much his father was shouldering alone. When Su Sun returned, he carried a pack of instant noodles. Spotting Li Gong, he paused. "Old Li, what brings you here?" Li Gong stood up. "Mr. Su, Su Sun waved his hand. "No need for that. The factory is gone." He handed the noodles to Suja. "Son, cook these for yourself. Dad needs to talk with Grandpa Li for a bit." Suja took the noodles, but did not move. Su Sun and Li Gong stepped into a corner of the workshop, their voices low. However, Suja's ears were sharp enough to catch snippets of their conversation. "Mr. Su, about my 30,000 yuan in wages, don't worry about it. Focus on the bank for now. Old Li, listen, I still have some savings. If you're truly in a bind, I can lend you a bit." Su Sun remained silent for a long time before finally replying. "Old Li, you deserve my gratitude. I'm the one who has let you down." "What are you saying?" Li Gong patted his shoulder. "In life, everyone faces ups and downs. Just endure, and it will pass." Suja stood at the door, watching his father's hunched figure, his eyes growing warm. In his previous life, he had never heard his father mention Li Gong. What became of Li Gong after that, he never knew. But he understood that for people like Li Gong, his father owed more than just money throughout his life. That evening, Su Sun unfolded the military bed and lay down with his son. The office light was already off, with only a sliver of moonlight streaming in from outside. Su Sun lay flat, staring at the ceiling, utterly still. Suja turned on his side, gazing at his father's face, which, though only in his 30s, bore the marks of weariness and age. He recalled in his previous life, when his father was in his 40s, half of his hair had turned white, and he had become stooped, laboring on construction sites, earning a meager 150 a day, unable to afford a decent meal. "Dad," he suddenly spoke. Su Sun regained his composure and looked down at him. "What's wrong? Are you unable to sleep?" After a moment of silence, Su Sun reached out and gently patted his head. "It's nothing. Dad is just lost in thought." "What are you thinking about?" Su Sun remained silent, merely pulling him closer into an embrace. "Sleep now, you have school tomorrow." Suja did not press further. Yet he was aware of his father's concerns, thoughts of the 30,000 in interest, the looming bank repayment deadline, this month's salary, and the breakfast for the next day. After a long while, he heard his father softly utter a phrase, his voice barely audible like a whisper of a mosquito. Yet he understood it clearly. "Just give me 1 more month, just 1 month." Suja closed his eyes, tears streaming down his cheeks and soaking into the pillow. In his previous life, he had been unable to assist his father. In this life, he could not allow his father to bear the burden alone. Had heaven granted him a second chance, it surely owed him something in return. As this thought crossed his mind, a sudden chime echoed in his head. "Host detected, binding requirements met. Future Tech City has been bound." Suja was momentarily taken aback. Then a surge of elation filled his heart. Having perused the online world in his past life, he understood well what a golden finger entailed. This was a trump card for altering fate. He just did not yet know what this activated golden finger would accomplish. Chapter 2. A scan of electrical engineering. As Suja was about to explore the system's functionalities, a sudden, violent banging on the door erupted outside, accompanied by fierce curses. "Su Sun, open the door. Stop playing dead." His father, startled from his slumber, bolted upright and rushed toward the door. Suja sat up, barefoot, and hurriedly approached the door, peering through the crack. The corridor was dimly lit, illuminated only by the moonlight streaming through the window. Su-sun stood at the door, blocking the almost breached iron door, his voice gravelly as if sandpaper had rubbed against stone. "Gentlemen, please give me another week, just 1 week." Outside stood several imposing figures, led by a middle-aged man clad in a jacket. He jabbed a finger into Su-sun's chest, each poke forceful. "A week? You said the same thing last month and the month before. Do you think we're beggars?" Su-sun staggered back a step, his back colliding with the doorframe. Yet he stood his ground. "The goods will arrive soon. Once they do, I'll repay you immediately." His voice trembled, betraying either anger or fear. Su-sun, keep my word, I never deceive." "Never deceive?" The man laughed, a harsh and unpleasant sound. "You not repaying your debts is the greatest deception of all." He shoved Su-sun aside and strode inside, followed by 2 others. Su-sun stumbled but regained his footing and caught the bald man's arm. "Brother, the equipment in the workshop cannot be moved. It's the last of what we have. If it's taken, we're finished." The man shook off his grip and turned to glare at him. "Su-sun, I'll lay it out straight. If you don't repay this debt, we'll take these old machines as payment. You won't be able to stop us." Flashlights flickered on in the workshop as the 2 men began to inspect the aging electrical machinery. Su-sun stood there, head bowed, shoulders slumped. Moonlight illuminated his face, and Suja saw that his father's eyes were bloodshot, as if on the verge of tears. 1 month, Su-sun suddenly spoke, his voice low yet firm. "Give me 1 month, and I will repay you." The man turned back, squinting at him. Su-sun raised his head, meeting that gaze, speaking each word clearly. "In 1 month, if I have not repaid, you can take everything in this workshop. I, Su-sun, will not obstruct you." The man stared at him for several moments before scoffing. "Fine, if I do not see the money in a month, we'll see each other in court. Your factory will go through the auction process." He waved his hand, leading his companions out. As they passed by Su-sun, the man paused briefly, patting his shoulder. "Old Su, it's not that I lack compassion, I borrowed this money too. 1 month is your final deadline. Remember that." The iron door slammed shut. Su-sun sank to the ground, head lowered, shoulders shaking silently. Suja understood that his father was crying. He slowly approached, standing beside him in quiet solidarity. After a long while, Su-sun lifted his head, wiped his face, and noticed his son standing there. He paused for a moment, then forced a smile that was more painful than tears. "Son, did I frighten you?" Suja shook his head. Su-sun embraced him tightly. Resting his chin on his shoulder, Suja felt his father tremble. "It's all right," Su-sun rasped. "Dad is here, it's okay." Suja said nothing, merely wrapping his arms around his father's neck. In his heart, one thought persisted. He could not allow his father to endure this any longer. Su-sun carried his son back to the small office, placing him on a cot while he sat at the edge, lost in thought. Suja feigned sleep, squinting his eyes as he delved into the system. The interface for Future Tech City reappeared. A line of text materialized on the screen. "Current computing power, 0. Please scan real-world items to unlock the technology tree." Suja pondered. "Scan? How do I scan?" He focused his thoughts on the window. On the remnants of equipment in the workshop, an old table, a rickety chair, and a worn-out electrical motor. Suddenly, a red box appeared on the interface, enclosing the old motor. Detected a scannable item, alternating current motor, old model. "Would you like to scan?" Suja felt a thrill of excitement. "Yes." He silently willed. "Scan." An invisible beam swept across, and new information emerged on the interface. "Scan successful. Unlock technology tree. Alternating current motor technology, white. Current sub-items available for unlocking. Ultra-efficient silent motor, white. Technical description. Consumes 30 less power than mainstream motors on the market. Reduces noise by 50 and doubles lifespan. Required computing power to unlock, 200. Current computing power, 0. Gazing at the 0, Suja felt a wave of despair. Where could he possibly acquire 200 computing power? He continued to scan the interface, where a smaller line of text appeared. Method of acquiring computing power. Positive emotions generated by the host's father, joy, gratitude, pride, etc. Current conversion rate, 1, increases with trust. Suja was momentarily taken aback. His father's positive emotions? He turned to look at Su-sun, who sat at the edge of the bed, lost in thought. Given his father's current state, It was hard to imagine any positive emotions. It was a miracle he wasn't crying out loud. How could he bring joy to him? Suja pondered throughout the night, but found no resolution. As dawn broke, Su-sun rose to wash his face, gazing into the window glass to smooth his hair. Brushing off the dust from his white shirt, he rummaged through a worn wallet in the drawer, counting the few coins remaining, less than 50 yuan. He pocketed the money and turned to Suja. Son, Dad is going out for a bit. You stay put. There are steamed buns on the table. Eat if you get hungry. Where are you going, Dad? Suja inquired. Su-sun hesitated before responding. I'm going to take care of some matters. He did not say he was going to borrow money, but Suja understood. After his father left, Suja climbed out of bed. The buns on the table were leftovers from yesterday, hard as rocks, crumbling with each bite. He nibbled a couple of bites, drank some water, then fell back into contemplation. How could he make his father happy? This was the key to acquiring computing power and unlocking the motor technology. With this new motor technology, his father could produce superior motors, and orders would arrive, revitalizing the factory. However, the pressing question remained: how to accumulate those 200 computing power? His father was out borrowing money, likely to return empty-handed. At that point, he'd be even less likely to feel joy. Suja sighed, burdened with the mind of a 30-year-old in the body of a 5-year-old. In the afternoon, Su-sun returned. Without needing to ask, Suja could tell from his expression that he had not succeeded in borrowing money. Upon entering, Su-sun carried 2 warm buns, handing one to Suja. Son, here. Eat. Suja accepted the bun and took a bite. It was filled with meat and quite fragrant. Su-sun sat beside him, watching as he ate without partaking himself. Suja handed over a bun, saying, Dad, you should eat too. Su-sun waved his hand dismissively, replying, I'm not hungry, you eat. Suja recognized the lie. His father hadn't eaten the night before and had not consumed anything all day. How could he not be hungry? He tore the bun in half and insisted, Let us eat together. Su-sun hesitated for a moment, looking at the half bun in his hand, then at his son, his eyes glistening. As he took a bite and began to chew, a smile suddenly broke across his face. My son has grown up. He knows to care for his father. Suja watched him, his mind suddenly ringing with a notification. Detected father's emotion. Computing power 100. Conversion rate 1. Actual gain 100 points. Current computing power 100-200. He was momentarily taken aback. Was it truly that simple? He glanced at his father and then at the remaining half bun in his hand, feeling a swirl of complex emotions. It was astonishing how easily he could bring joy to his father. Why had he not learned this in his previous life? Chapter 3. The first blueprint. After finishing the bun, Su-sun went off to work in the workshop. Suja silently counted in his mind. He still needed 100 more points. He had to make his father happy once again. But how could he do that? He pondered for a moment, then approached his father, tugging at his shirt. Dad, let me help you. Su-sun looked down at him and chuckled. You? What can you do with that little frame? Without responding, Suja picked up a broom longer than his arm and began to sweep the floor. His movements were slow and awkward, but each stroke was earnest. Su-sun stood by, watching, his eyes misting over once more. He crouched down and lifted his son, saying, all right, let me handle it. You go play. Suja struggled to get down, insisting, I don't want to play, I want to help you. Su-sun set him down and ruffled his hair, saying fine. Then help me stack those cardboard boxes. The father and son worked together until dusk, transforming the once chaotic workshop into a semblance of order. Standing upright, Su-sun surveyed their work and sighed. It's all cleaned up. I wonder how many more days we can stay here. Suja grasped his hand reassuringly. Dad, it's all right. Things will get better. Su-sun looked down at him and smiled. You little rascal, what do you know about things getting better? Suja tilted his face upwards, responding earnestly, I understand. You're so capable, you'll surely make it. Su-sun was momentarily taken aback. He gazed at his son's earnest little face and felt something stir within him. For years, he had single-handedly raised his son. His wife had left. The factory was on the brink of collapse, and creditors were at their door daily. He had never felt bitter because he believed he could endure it all. But at that moment, hearing his son say he was capable, his eyes suddenly stung with emotion. He crouched down and embraced his son tightly. Son, I'm sorry for making you suffer alongside me. Ding. Detected father's emotion. Computing power 100. Current computing power 200-200. Unlocking ultra-efficient silent motor technology. White. It worked. Suja closed his eyes and silently chanted, unlock. In an instant, it felt as if something exploded within his mind. A flood of information surged forth: winding turns of the stator, arrangement of the rotor's magnets, stacking methods of silicon steel sheets, standards for selecting insulating materials. Every parameter, every process, was etched in his mind with crystal clarity. He opened his eyes to see his father still holding him, a slight smile playing on his lips. "Dad, wait. We're about to turn things around." As Suja's consciousness withdrew from the system, he observed his father's remorseful expression. And he couldn't help but wrap his arms around his father's neck, saying, "Dad, you raised me. You owe me nothing." Su-sun's eyes instantly glistened with tears. "Good boy, are you tired? Go rest while I finish up." Suja didn't resist. He was preparing to sketch the unlocked motor technology, obediently nodding before returning to the office. He retrieved paper and pen, leaning over the desk to begin drawing. His small hands struggled to grip the pen steadily, resulting in crooked lines, yet his mind held the complete blueprint, and he painstakingly traced each line. Stator, rotor, winding, magnets. Every part was annotated with parameters. He drew for over 2 hours until the night had fully enveloped the sky. Su-sun entered the room once, saw him drawing, and quietly left again. By the time Su-sun returned, Suja had completed the blueprint. He handed the paper to Su-sun, saying, "Dad, take a look." Su-sun turned and saw his son presenting a sheet filled with intricate lines and numbers. He accepted it and glanced over it. His pupils dilated in shock. It was a complete motor design blueprint. The stator, rotor, winding methods, thickness of the silicon steel sheets, diameter and number of turns of the copper wire. Every component was meticulously illustrated, each dimension clearly marked. There were even handwritten performance comparisons: 30 energy savings, 50 noise reduction, double the lifespan. Su-sun's hands began to tremble. He held the paper closer to the light, scrutinizing it from beginning to end and back again. The figures, the parameters, the annotations grew increasingly astonishing. A motor built according to this blueprint would undoubtedly outperform all similar products on the market. Just the 30 energy savings alone would make it highly sought after by fan manufacturers and exhaust fan companies alike. He abruptly turned to his son, his voice quaking. "Son, where did this come from?" Suja looked up at him with wide eyes, innocently replying, "In a dream, an old man with a white beard taught me. And I remembered it after many repetitions." Su-sun was left speechless. An old man with a white beard? A dream? He scrutinized his son's earnest expression, searching for any indication of deceit, but found none. His son's eyes sparkled, pure as 2 springs. He lowered his gaze to the blueprint once more. This was certainly not something that could be conjured from a dream. Even an experienced engineer after decades in the factory would struggle to produce such a complete and precise design, considering every detail. Su-sun grasped his son's shoulders, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Son, tell me the truth. Is this blueprint real?" Suja nodded. "Dad, you'll know if you try." "Try?" A thought flashed through Su-sun's mind. If this were true, if such a motor could truly be created. He carefully spread the blueprint on the table, smoothing the edges with his fingers as he focused intently on it. Stator with 36 slots, rotor with 44 slots, double layer winding, pitch 1 to 11, wire diameter 0.85 millimeters, 58 turns per slot, connected in a triangular configuration. Each data set was meticulously clear. Su-sun took a deep breath. He recalled the only old worker who hadn't left the factory, Engineer Lee, who had spent 40 years working with motors, a retired technician with true craftsmanship. If the blueprint were real, Engineer Lee would recognize it instantly. He folded the blueprint carefully and tucked it into his shirt pocket, close to his heart. Then he crouched down to face his son. "Son," his voice was slightly hoarse, "do you know what this blueprint signifies?" Suja shook his head. Su-sun reached out and lifted his son into a firm embrace. "Son, thank you." He spoke softly, but with great intensity. Ding. Detected father's emotion. Computing power 100, Suja rested his head on his father's shoulder, gently patting his back. That night, Su-sun didn't sleep a wink. He pulled out the blueprint repeatedly, memorizing every number, but still couldn't help but look at it again. He calculated the potential profits from selling the motor, the orders he could secure, and the earnings he could generate. He crunched the numbers until dawn. The ashtray was full, and his eyes were red but shone with an extraordinary brightness. Just as dawn broke, he clutched the blueprint and dashed out the door. Chapter 4. Why is that silly old man crying? Su-sun ran all the way to the shantytown. Though it was called a shantytown, it was merely a cluster of low, cramped houses squeezed together, with alleys so narrow that two people could hardly pass each other. The ground was uneven, and after the rain the previous day, puddles still lingered. He meandered through the alley and finally halted before a weathered wooden door, its paint peeling away. Li Gong squatted at the entrance, a cigarette pinched between his fingers, staring blankly at the ground. "Oldly," Su Sun called out, breathless. Li Gong lifted his head, momentarily taken aback upon seeing Su Sun, then managed a bitter smile. "General Su, given the state of the factory, what brings you here?" He extinguished the cigarette on the ground, attempted to rise, but halfway through, he settled back down, patting the adjacent step. "Have a seat." Su Sun did not sit. He pulled out a crumpled blueprint from his pocket, crouching down to spread it out on the step. "Oldly, take a look at this." Li Gong glanced down, then did a double take, suddenly leaping to his feet with such force that he nearly toppled Su Sun. His eyes widened, mouth agape, his voice shifting in pitch. This is the motor design drawing." Su Sun nodded. Li Gong crouched again, delicately tracing the edges of the blueprint as if handling a precious artifact. His eyes darted across the paper, from the stator to the rotor, from the winding to the parameters, muttering to himself. 36 slots, 44 slots, pitch 1 to 11. Double layer winding, wire diameter 0. 85. These parameters are exquisite, simply exquisite. He abruptly fixed his gaze on Su Sun. "Who drew these parameters?" Su Sun shook his head. "Let us not concern ourselves with who drew it. I ask you, can it be produced?" "Absolutely." Li Gong slapped his thigh, the sound echoing. "This design is brilliant. Look here." He pointed to the winding diagram. "Ordinary motors are single layer. He has modified it to double layer, increasing efficiency by at least 5 percentage points. And the slot fill rate is calculated perfectly, not a bit wasted. General Su, if we can produce this, every motor factory in the country will call us father." The more he spoke, the more animated he became, his hands trembling. Su Sun observed him, feeling a warmth in his eyes. "Shall we give it a try?" he suggested. Li Gong paused. "Try? With what materials? The factory has run out." Su Sun rummaged through his pocket, pulling out a few crumpled bills, counting them. 500 yuan in total. It was all the money he had left. Initially intended for rice and noodles, he pressed the money into Li Gong's hand. "Let us pool together for parts." Li Gong stared at the handful of bills, silent for a few moments. Then he turned and entered the building, rummaging through boxes for a while. When he returned, he held a wad of cash, 3,000 yuan. "This was meant for my grandson's tuition, but let us use it first." Together, they pooled 3,500 yuan and rode Li Gong's nearly falling apart bicycle to the electromechanical market to scavenge for parts. They bought the cheapest copper wire, substandard silicon steel sheets, and domestic bearings, all for 3,500 yuan, splitting the expenses among them. In the afternoon, within the abandoned workshop, the machinery had long ceased operations, and the production line was cloaked in a thick layer of dust. Yet, in a corner stood an old manual winding machine and a few barely functional testing instruments. Su Sun and Li Gong crouched on the ground, beginning to wind the wires according to the blueprint. Suja stood nearby, silent, quietly observing their efforts. He was too small to reach the workbench, so he tiptoed, peering over the edge with half his head visible. After a while, Li Gong suddenly halted. He lifted the wound coil to the light, frowning. "This number of turns. Something feels off. It seems too tight, it won't fit." He compared the coil against the stator slot, and confirmed it was indeed too tight to fit. Suja, peering over the edge, focused on the coil for a few seconds and piped up in a small voice. "Grandpa Li, I assent that wire wound incorrectly? You should wind the inner layer first, then the outer one." Li Gong blinked in surprise, glanced at the blueprint, then back at the coil. Suddenly, he smacked his forehead. "Oh, how did I miss that?" He quickly disassembled the coil and rewound it, all the while glancing at Suja, his eyes sparkling. "Little Zhe, how did you spot that?" Suja blinked. "It just didn't look right." Li Gong chuckled, ruffling the boy's hair. "Good lad, smarter than your father." Suja did not shy away, nor did he speak, merely twitching the corners of his mouth. Su Sun glanced at his son, remaining silent, and returned to his task. The afternoon slipped away. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the workshop grew dim. Su Sun flicked on the dim, overhead incandescent light, casting an orange glow over the chaotic scene. The last wire was connected. Li Gong rubbed his hands together, gazing at the makeshift prototype, palms slick with sweat. He inhaled deeply, then exhaled, turning to Su Sun. "General Su, would you like to power it on?" Su Sun stood there, fixated on the motor, paralyzed with hesitation. What if it didn't work? What if it wouldn't start? He clenched his fists, palms clammy with sweat. I'll do it, Li Gong said. Seeing Su Sun's immobility, he stepped forward and grasped the plug. He inserted it into the socket. The motor hummed to life, light, steady, like a bee in flight. Li Gong froze for a moment, then quickly grabbed the ammeter and clipped it on. His eyes were glued to the dial, fingers gripping the edge, knuckles whitening. The current. 4.2 amperes. His voice trembled. Ordinary motors of the same power draw around 6.2 amperes. A 32 reduction. He snatched the decibel meter, brought it close to the motor. The noise level. 31 decibels. An ordinary motor registers at 65 decibels. He dropped the decibel meter and touched the motor casing. Then took a temperature reading. The rise. After an hour of operation, it was only 18 degrees above room temperature. Ordinary motors would easily exceed 33 degrees. Li Gong's hands trembled so much he nearly dropped the temperature gun. He turned to Su Sun, his eyes glistening with moisture. General Su. He opened his mouth, but his throat felt constricted, unable to articulate his thoughts. He then squatted down, covering his face with his hands, shoulders shaking. The workshop filled only with the motors humming and Li Gong's suppressed sobs. Su Sun stood there, gazing at the motor. Memories of the past 3 months, filled with confrontations and accusations, flooded back to him, and his eyes began to glisten. He turned to see his son still perched at the workbench, looking up at him with a small face. Su Sun approached, crouching down to meet his son's gaze. He wanted to say something, but his lips moved without sound. Finally, he simply reached out and embraced his son tightly. Ding! Detected the father's excitement. Calculation power 200. Suja nestled against his father's shoulder, observing his father's back tremble slightly, feeling the firm embrace as if his father feared he might slip away. He remained still, silent, only extending his small hand to gently pat his father's back, mimicking the way his father usually comforted him. Su Sun felt the gentle pats on his back and nearly lost control of his tears. He closed his eyes, burying his face in his son's small shoulder. Speaking hoarsely, "Son, are you a gift from heaven?" Suja paused, resting on his father's shoulder, blinking. A gift? He felt a pang in his heart. In his past life, he hadn't given his father a single day of happiness. In this life, he only wished to repay the debts of the past. He remained silent, gently patting his father's back again. Ding! Su Sun's emotional response, 100 calculation power. Ding! Su Sun's pride, 100 calculation power. Suja closed his eyes. A small voice in his heart, audible only to him, whispered, "Silly old man, why cry? There are many days ahead." Chapter 5. Unconventional paths. The motor is a marvelous invention, yet no one dares to place an order. Su Sun, cradling the prototype, visited previous clients one by one. At the first stop, a fan manufacturer, the purchasing manager examined the prototype briefly before returning it. General Su, it's not that I don't want to help, but given the current state of your factory, what if there's no after-sales support later? Who would I turn to? The second company, which specializes in exhaust fans, was polite. The boss poured a glass of water and sighed, saying, "Old Su, I can tell just by the sound of your motor that it is a quality product. However, your factory is on the verge of auction. Can I really place an order? If the goods are not completed before the factory is gone, who will compensate me?" The third, fourth, and fifth companies all turned him down. The last one he approached was the one with whom he had collaborated the most. Su Sun went there with a glimmer of hope. However, as soon as he stepped through the door, the security guard stopped him, and upon hearing his intentions, he was promptly ushered out. Go. The boss said he doesn't want to see you." Su Sun staggered back a couple of steps before regaining his balance. He stood at the entrance, watching the automatic door close, his reflection in the glass revealing a disheveled head of hair and wrinkled clothes, clutching a motor like a rag picker. He looked down at the prototype in his arms. The motor functioned beautifully, quieter than Japanese products and more energy efficient than German ones. Yet, it was unwanted. Holding onto the motor, he found a step by the roadside and sat down. The sun blazed overhead, but he remained in its rays, not seeking shade. His eyes fixated on the ground, lost in thought. Suja stood beside him, observing his father's silhouette. His shoulders slumped, and his head hung low, as if all strength had been drained from him. A heaviness settled in Suja's heart. In the previous life, his father had endured similar rejections, ultimately collapsing under the weight of despair. But this time, it was different. This time, the motor was genuinely exceptional. Suja tugged at his father's clothing. Su Sun remained motionless. He pulled again, and only then did Su Sun turn his head, offering a strained smile. Son, are you hungry? Let us go eat. Suja shook his head. Dad, let us go to the electrical market. Su Sun paused in confusion. The electrical market? Suja nodded. Let us find those who repair motors. They know quality better than anyone, and they won't mind if the factory is small. Su Sun gazed at his son, his eyes gradually brightening. Suddenly, he stood up and lifted his son into his arms. Let us go. The local electrical repair market was located in the east of the city, along an old street lined with shops for motor and fan repairs. The ground was greasy, and the air was thick with the scent of machine oil. As Su Sun walked in with his son, the shopkeepers on either side looked up at them. He stopped in front of a shop marked with a worn sign, Old Zhao Motor Repair. Inside, the place was cluttered with disassembled motors, and a man in his 50s was crouched on the ground, using a multimeter to measure something. Master Zhao? Su Sun called out. Old Zhao looked up, squinting at them. Here to repair a motor? Su Sun placed the prototype down. Master Zhao, please take a look at this. Old Zhao wiped his hands and approached. Taking the prototype, he first weighed it in his hands, then examined the casing before picking up the multimeter to test it. The parameters were indeed well marked. However, many products boast good specifications these days. The real test is how it performs. He plugged in the power, and the motor whirred to life. It was remarkably quiet and steady. Old Zhao was left speechless, his words trailing off as he leaned closer to the motor, listening intently for 3 seconds. Then even closer for another 3. He lifted his head, eyes wide. How can this motor be so quiet? Quieter than Japanese products. He quickly grabbed an ammeter, clamped it on, staring at the dial with bated breath. 4.2 amps, he murmured, measuring again to confirm it was still 4.2. He suddenly turned to Su Sun, his voice trembling. 30% energy savings? You can't be joking. Su Sun stood there, observing Old Zhao's reaction. Feeling a weight lift from his heart, he smiled warmly. You'll know once you try it. Old Zhao examined the motor thoroughly, from the exterior to the internal structure, and then to the terminal connections. After a long inspection, he raised his head, his demeanor transformed. Who made this motor? Su Sun did not answer directly, but instead asked. What do you think? Old Zhao slapped his thigh. Let me tell you, I've repaired motors for 20 years, including Japanese, German, and Taiwanese products. This motor is quieter than Japanese ones and steadier than German ones. If produced in bulk, those large manufacturers will go crazy over it. Su Sun watched him, his lips moving as if to speak, but then swallowing his words. Noticing his hesitation, Old Zhao inquired, how much for each unit? Su Sun paused, quickly quoting a price. Old Zhao nodded, contemplating for a moment before waving his hand. Give me 20 units. I'll try them out with my clients. He pulled out a wad of cash, counted it, and handed Su Sun 20 bills, a deposit of 2,000. Can you deliver within a week? Su Sun stared at the stack of money, unable to respond. He stood there, as if in shock. Old Zhao pushed the money into his hand. What are you dawdling for? Take it. Su Sun looked down at the crisp bills, still warm from Old Zhao's pocket. His hands began to tremble. All right. His voice was hoarse. I'll ensure delivery within a week. Old Zhao patted his shoulder. Do well. If this batch performs well, you'll have plenty of orders to follow. Su Sun nodded, wanting to express his gratitude. But his throat felt constricted, rendering him speechless. He carried his son out of the market. The sun had begun to set, the rays warmer and less harsh. As they walked, Su Sun suddenly stopped. He set his son down and began to twirl around on the street. Once, twice, thrice. Son, he shouted as he spun. We have an order. People on the street turned to look at him, but he paid them no mind. Suja stood by, watching his father, disheveled and wrinkled, spinning like a fool in the street. Yet, he could not muster a smile. He looked at his father's face, gaunt and shadowed, with reddened eyes that shone with an extraordinary brightness, akin to two lanterns lit in the dark. He pondered when the last time his father smiled was in his previous life. He couldn't recall. After spinning enough, Su Sun crouched down and embraced his son tightly. Son. He buried his face in his son's shoulder, his voice muffled. Thank you. Suja rested his head on his father's shoulder, silent. He blinked back tears, feeling a lump in his throat. Then, he reached out and gently patted his father's back, a voice in his heart whispering, Silly old man. This is just the beginning. Chapter 6. A surge in sales. A week after successfully delivering 20 motors, Su Sun was crouched in the workshop, winding wires, when his phone rang. He took it out to see it was Old Zhao. As soon as he answered, old Zhao's booming voice came through, excited to the point of distortion. Boss Su, how many more of those motors do you have? Su Sun was taken aback. Huh? Stop ing. How many do you have left? Old Zhao urged. I need 50 more. My clients are raving about them, energy efficient and silent. One restaurant owner installed 3 and came to tell me yesterday that this month's electricity bill will be at least 100 less. That's over 1,000 a year. Su Sun gripped the phone, speechless for a moment. 50 units. A profit of 5,000. He opened his mouth to respond. Realizing his throat was dry, clearing it before managing to say, yes, I'll get right on it. Delivery in 3 days. Great. I'll be waiting. Old Zhao hung up abruptly. Su Sun stood there, holding the phone, stunned for several seconds. Then he turned and dashed into the workshop. Old Li, he shouted, Old Li. Li Gong, who was crouched winding wires, nearly dropped the coil in surprise at Su Sun's shout. What's wrong? What's wrong? An order. Another order has come in. Su Sun waved his phone excitedly. 50 units. Old Zhao wants 50 units. Li Gong sprang to his feet, eyes wide. 50 units? Yes. Su Sun panted, quick. Call Old Zhang and Old Lu back. We need to work through the night. Without a moment's hesitation, Li Gong dropped what he was doing and rushed out. That afternoon, 2 individuals, Lao Zhang and Lao Lu, returned to the factory. They were seasoned workers who had departed when the factory was struggling. Upon receiving a call from Engineer Li, they returned without hesitation. The 4 of them crowded into the workshop, operating 2 winding machines simultaneously, working tirelessly from dusk until midnight. Suja nestled in a corner, observing their industriousness. He watched as his father squatted down to wind the wire, occasionally straightening up to pat his back before resuming his task. The light illuminated his father's face, which was dark and gaunt, glistening with sweat, yet his eyes shone with a genuine brightness, not the forced kind from before. Intrigued, Suja quietly moved closer to his father, peering over to watch him work. The copper wires twisted and turned in his father's hands, appearing chaotic, yet fitting perfectly into the stator once completed. Dad, doesn't your hand hurt? He inquired. Su Sun glanced down and smiled. It does, but it must be done, or we won't meet the deadline. After pondering for a moment, Suja extended his small hand and gently patted his father's arm. Su Sun paused in surprise, then chuckled. Oh, my son has learned to care for others. Engineer Li, witnessing this, shouted, Lao Zhang, Lao Lu, look at how understanding Su's son is. Unlike your grandsons, who only ask for money. Lao Zhang, without lifting his head, replied, how can they compare? Little Zhe is the factory owner's son, destined for greatness. Embarrassed by their remarks, Suja retracted his neck and returned to his corner, though his lips curled into a smile. By the 3rd evening, 50 motors were completed. Old Zhao personally rode over on a tricycle to collect the goods. He squatted down, inspecting each motor, nodding after examining each one. Upon finishing, he stood, dusting off his hands, and looked at Su Sun. Boss Su, your factory is on the rise. Su Sun rubbed his hands together and smiled heartily. Thanks to your support. Old Zhao pulled out a wad of cash, counted it, and handed it over. 5,000. You can check. Su Sun accepted the money, slightly trembling, without counting it, simply pocketing it. Old Zhao observed him, chuckling, you're a doer. He loaded the motors onto the tricycle and before leaving, called back, there are more to come. So be prepared. Word spread inexplicably. The next day, people began arriving in droves, all owners from the electrical repair market. The first, a man in his 40s, entered, exclaiming, who is Boss Su? I hear you have excellent motors. Su Sun led him to the sample motor, connecting it to power. Within 3 seconds, the man's eyes lit up. After testing the current, he declared, if you install this motor in a fan, it can save nearly half the electricity in a month. Customers will be clamoring for it. I want 100 units. Su Sun was taken aback. How many? 100. The man pulled out a stack of deposit money and slapped it on the table. When can you deliver? Su Sun glanced at Engineer Li, who looked back at him. In a week. Su Sun replied. All right. The man stood up. I'll be back in a week to collect the goods. Once he left, Su Sun remained, staring at the pile of money on the table in a daze. Engineer Li approached and patted his shoulder. Boss Su, are you all right? Snapping back to reality, Su Sun looked at Engineer Li and suddenly smiled. As he continued to smile, tears welled in his eyes. Within a week, 300 motors sold, yielding a profit of 30,000 yuan. Su Sun had never seen so much money in his life. That evening, he sat on the edge of his bed, laying the cash out one by one until the bed was covered. Suja lay beside him, watching his father count, going over it again and again. 30,400, Su-sun exclaimed after the third count, looking at his son with eyes squinting in joy. Son, 30,400. Suja, gazing at his father's face, couldn't he help but chuckle. He reached out, grabbing a bill and holding it up to the light. Dad, how much meat can we buy with this? Su-sun paused, then burst into laughter. Meat? Buy as much as you want. Tomorrow, I'll buy some and make you braised pork. And some candied hawthorn. And candied hawthorn. Suja added. Buy it. Su-sun waved his hand grandly. 10 skewers. Suja blinked. We can't finish it. If we can't finish it, we'll save it for later. Su-sun lifted his son high. At this rate, we could earn over 100,000 in a month. Our factory is saved. Suspended in the air. Suja looked down at his father's face, dark and gaunt, yet his eyes shone brilliantly, smiling like a child. He too smiled, not just a warm smile, but a genuine one, as his father's demeanor was delightfully foolish, making him want to gaze longer. Su-sun set him down amidst the pile of money, wrapping an arm around him. Son, what do you think we should do next? Suja tilted his head, contemplating. Let us buy a few more winding machines and hire more people. Su-sun nodded. I was thinking the same. Old Lee said that with our current 4 workers, we can produce a maximum of 20 units a day. If we add 2 more machines and hire a few more hands, we could make 50 units daily. Suja looked at him. Dad, won't you be too tired? Su-sun paused, then smiled, ruffling his son's hair. Tired? Making money is never easy. I'm not afraid of hard work. I'm afraid of not earning. Suja pondered and asked, what if we have money in the future? Su-sun was momentarily taken aback. After a long pause, he replied, then I'll stop working and spend every day playing with you. Suja pouted. I don't want you to keep me company. Su-sun feigned shock. Hey, you little rascal. Before he could finish, he burst into laughter. 3 days later, they sold 500 motors, earning a profit of 50,000 yuan. That afternoon, while Su-sun was discussing the purchase of another winding machine with Engineer Lee, a black sedan suddenly stopped at the entrance. The door opened, and 2 men stepped out. The first, a man in his 40s wearing a deep blue polo shirt and polished shoes, scanned the workshop immediately. The second, bespectacled and carrying a toolbox, appeared to be a technician. Which one is Boss Su? Su-sun stood up, slightly bewildered. I am. Chapter 7. Factory Revival. Hello, Boss Su. I'm from Chunfeng Fan Factory. My surname is Zhou. The man in the polo approached, extending his hand with a smile. Su-sun was momentarily taken aback, quickly wiping his hands on his pants before shaking Zhou's hand. Hello, Boss Zhou. Zhou smiled, glancing into the workshop. I heard your motors are exceptional, so I brought the technical director to inspect the goods. Su-sun's heart raced. He instinctively turned to glance at his son, who was still squatting in the corner. Gazing curiously, Suja noticed his father glance back, blinking in response. Regaining his composure, Su-sun said, Boss Zhou, please come inside. He then instructed Engineer Lee to bring out the sample motor and place it on the table. The technical director wasted no time, squatting down to begin testing. He first attached a current meter, staring intently at the dial for several seconds, his brow furrowing slightly. He then pulled out a decibel meter, leaning in to listen for a while. Afterward, he stood and examined the motor's structure from behind before squatting down to test it again. Zhou stood by patiently, not rushing him. Su-sun stood to the side, palms sweating. He couldn't help but glance at the corner again. His son was still there, grinning widely. That silly smile unexpectedly eased Su-sun's anxiety. The test concluded. The technical director rose and addressed Zhou, his voice clear yet measured. Boss Zhou, this motor surpasses the Japanese ones we currently use. It saves 30 energy, produces less noise, and has a more reasonable structural design. Zhou's eyes brightened. He approached the sample motor, running his hand over its casing, inspecting it closely before looking up at Su-sun. Boss Su, where did you acquire this technology? Su-sun rubbed his hands together, smiling earnestly. I developed it myself. Zhou, the owner, paused for a moment, then chuckled. All right, you have some skills. He glanced around the workshop, where several workers were crouched on the ground, winding wires with rudimentary equipment. Su, shall we discuss a collaboration? Zhou stated directly. I need 1,000 units per month, with a price 20% above market rate, but the quality must be consistent. Su-sun's heart skipped a beat. 1,000 units. In a month. He opened his mouth, realizing his throat felt dry, and after clearing it, managed to reply, Mr. Zhou, that's agreeable. However, my factory is small. so production capacity will take time to increase. Zhou laughed heartily, patting him on the shoulder. No problem. Let us sign a contract first, with a 20% deposit. You can ramp up production at your own pace. I can wait. He pulled out a contract from his bag and handed it to Su Sun. Su Sun took it, his hands trembling slightly. He looked down at the contract, the words blurring before his eyes, and then glanced towards the corner. His son was no longer crouching there. He had moved beside him, looking up at the contract with curiosity. Su Sun took a deep breath, turned to the last page of the contract, and picked up a pen. The tip hovered above the signature line for a brief moment before he signed. Zhou collected the contract and produced a check, presenting it to Su Sun, a deposit of 50,000. Su, here's to our successful collaboration. Su Sun took the check, staring at the number in disbelief. A successful collaboration, he repeated, his voice somewhat hoarse. Zhou departed. Su Sun remained in the workshop, clutching the check, lost in thought. Workerly leaned over, peering at the check. Mr. Su, how much is it? Su Sun showed it to him. Li's eyes widened in astonishment. 50,000. Is this the deposit? Su Sun nodded. Li stared blankly for a moment before slapping Su Sun on the shoulder. Mr. Su, we've hit the jackpot. Old Zhang and old Lu gathered around, their faces lighting up with excitement. 50,000. Just the deposit. If the full payment comes through, it could be over 200,000. Wow. Our factory is really going to turn around. They chattered animatedly, bursting with pent-up exhilaration. Surrounded by them, Su Sun felt an urge to laugh, but also wanted to cry. He searched for his son. Suja had returned to the corner, focused on playing with screws on the ground, seemingly oblivious to the commotion. Su Sun approached and crouched down. Suja looked up at him. Without uttering a word, Su Sun extended the check towards him. Suja glanced at it, then raised his eyes to meet his father's gaze. Su Sun's face was thin and dark, with red-rimmed eyes, yet he smiled like a fool. Dad, Suja suddenly spoke. Your hand is still shaking. Su Sun was taken aback and looked down at his trembling hand. It really is shaking, he admitted with a chuckle. Suja giggled in response. He reached out, tapping Su Sun's shaking hand. What is there to tremble about? It's not like you've never seen money before. Su Sun was both amused and exasperated. You little rascal, 50,000. Have you ever seen that much? Suja blinked, remaining silent. He had seen it. His father had owed far more in his previous life. But in this life, this was the first sum. He withdrew his hand and returned to playing with the screws. As Su Sun squatted there, looking at his son's fluffy head, he suddenly felt a sense of steadiness within. He stood up, carefully placing the check into his pocket, giving it a pat. Oldly, he called out. Prepare the materials and file for the patent. Li rushed over. Patent? Yes, a utility model patent. Su Sun insisted, we need to apply for it quickly, or we'll have no recourse if someone copies us. Li smacked his thigh. Right. I'll get on it immediately. That afternoon, Li began preparing the necessary materials. Suja, sitting nearby, watched as Li sifted through the documents and suddenly interjected, Grandpa Li, make sure to specify the winding method and the thickness of the silicon steel sheet. It all needs to be included. Li turned to him, smiling. Young Zhe, you understand this? Suja blinked. I heard you guys talking about it. Li thought nothing of it and turned back to his writing. Su Sun observed his son with pride. Half a month later, the patent acceptance notification arrived. Su Sun held the paper, examining it from every angle. Utility model patent. He murmured, looking around for his son. Suja was squatting at the workshop entrance, drawing patterns in the dirt with a stick. Su Sun approached and presented the notification to him. Son, look. Suja glanced up briefly. Oh, he replied. Su Sun frowned. What do you mean, oh? This is a patent. Now, if anyone tries to copy our product, we can sue them. Suja looked at him and suddenly laughed. Dad, do you know what you look like right now? Su Sun paused. What do I look like? Like someone who found money, Suja remarked before returning to his drawing. Su Sun was momentarily speechless, unsure of how to respond. Finally, he crouched down beside his son. In the workshop, the machines roared to life. 20 veteran workers had returned, and 2 newly purchased winding machines operated at full speed. The floor was littered with copper wires, silicon steel sheets, and bearings, creating a chaotic scene. Yet every face bore a lively expression. Old Zhang, winding wires, chatted with old Lu beside him. You know, working here feels solid. I spent 3 months outside, and it just felt wrong. Old Lu, without lifting his gaze, replied, of course. After 20 years, I wouldn't know what to do without this place. Li walked by, giving old Zhang a kick. Stop chatting and get to work. Zhou's 1,000 units are waiting. Old Zhang chuckled, speeding up his pace. Chapter 8. Making a name after Chunchun Fan Factory began utilizing Su Sun's motors. Their production of silent fans skyrocketed in popularity. Zhou personally called, his voice brimming with joy, "Mr. Su, your motor is a treasure." As soon as my batch of fans hit the market, customers praised them for being silent and energy efficient. They are clamoring for more. I'm planning to place an additional order. Su Sun, holding the phone, grinned widely. "Mr. Zhou, you flatter me. I'm just glad you're satisfied." After hanging up, he wandered around the workshop, unsure of what to do next. Li, noticing his daze, chuckled, "Mr. Su, are you in a daze?" Su Sun stopped, looked at Li, and suddenly laughed. "Old Li, it seems we are truly on the verge of a turnaround." The news spread faster than he anticipated. Within a week, 3 additional local fan factory owners approached him, all previously unacquainted but now eager to collaborate. The first, Mr. Wang, entered and immediately offered a cigarette. "Mr. Su, I heard your motors have made Chunchun Factory successful. Could you supply me with some? I need 500 units per month." The second, Mr. Chun, was more direct. "Mr. Su, I've heard your motors are even better than Japanese ones. I trust you. Let us sign for 300 units. And we'll discuss more later." The third was a woman in her 40s, speaking briskly. "Mr. Su, my factory is small, just 200 units per month. Please don't turn me away. You set the price, and the quality should match Chunchun Factory S." Su Sun agreed to each request, signing contracts, collecting deposits, and arranging production. The machines in the workshop never ceased their operation. Li, leading 20 workers, worked round the clock, while Su Sun immersed himself in winding, assembling, testing, doing everything. Suja still crouched in the corner, observing their industriousness. Occasionally, when Li grew tired from winding, he would call out, "Little Zhe, could you fetch Grandpa Li a glass of water?" Suja would scramble to his feet, stepping over the scattered copper wire to fulfill the request. When old Zhang became thirsty, he would shout, "Little Zhe, bring Grandpa Zhang a glass too." Suja would dutifully run off again. As he scurried about, his legs bore scratches from the copper wire, yet he remained silent. Su Sun noticed this and pulled him aside. "Stop running. Can't they get their own water?" Suja blinked. "I have nothing better to do." Su Sun looked at him, wanting to say something, yet refrained, merely reaching out to ruffle his hair. Su Sun's satisfaction 100 computational power. As the month drew to a close, Su Sun sat at his desk, fiddling with the calculator for quite some time. Li Gong, waiting beside him, couldn't help but inquire, "How much?" Su Sun lifted his head, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "This month, a profit of 200,000. Li Gong was taken aback for a moment, and then slapped the table in disbelief. "Damn." He stood up, pacing around the workshop, shouting, 200,000. 200,000 in a month. "Old Zhang, old Lu, did you hear that?" Old Zhang, busy winding wires, didn't he even look up. "Heard it. You're shouting so loudly that even the deaf can hear." Yet, his hands moved noticeably faster. Su Sun set down the calculator, staring at the numbers, frozen in contemplation. He recalled the torment of the preceding 3 months and finally saw a glimmer of hope. He reached out to several suppliers with outstanding debts, repaying a small portion first. This time, the suppliers were no longer difficult with Su Sun, as his factory's business was improving, and they were no longer worried about him defaulting on payments. The pressure from before stemmed from the threat of his factory being auctioned off. After settling with the creditors, Su Sun contacted the bank, and after some discussions, they ultimately agreed to postpone the interest payments. Having accomplished these tasks, he finally exhaled a long sigh of relief. The factory was saved, and it boasted stable, profitable products. That evening, Su Sun took Su Zhou out to dine. They visited a small eatery adorned with red lanterns at the entrance, featuring a few wooden tables inside. Su Sun ordered 2 meat dishes and 1 vegetable, braised pork, sweet and sour ribs, and stir-fried greens. When the dishes arrived, Su Sun first picked up a piece of braised pork for his son, followed by a rib. "Eat more," he said. "You must be exhausted lately." Suja bowed his head to eat, remaining silent. Su Sun took a few bites himself, then set down his chopsticks, gazing at his son. "Son," he suddenly spoke. Suja raised his head. "Our factory seems to have truly come back to life," Su Sun mused, his voice soft, as if speaking to himself. Suja looked at him, not responding. Su Sun added a helping of greens onto his plate. "Eat, don't just watch me." Suja took a bite, then looked up. "Dad, what are your plans moving forward?" Su Sun paused, considering. "First, we need to settle our debts. We can clear the 30,000 in interest with this month's earnings. The remaining money, we will gradually expand production. Suja shook his head. Su-sun regarded him. What's wrong? Suja set down his chopsticks, looking at his father. Dad, we need to grow stronger. The motor technology can still be upgraded. And in the future, we could produce motors for electric vehicles, which is a vast market. Su-sun was taken aback. He stared at his son, speechless for a moment. How do you know about electric vehicles? He asked. Suja blinked innocently. I saw it on TV. The news keeps saying that electric vehicles will become widespread. And the government supports it. Dad, trust me, electric vehicles will definitely be popular in the future. Su-sun gazed at him, a strange feeling welling up inside. This son of his seemed to understand everything. He hadn't yet figured out the motor blueprints, and now electric vehicles emerged in the conversation. Looking at his son's earnest little face, he sought a flaw to challenge, but found none. His son regarded him with bright, clear eyes, as pure as two springs. Su-sun opened his mouth, unsure of what to say. Su-sun's pride, 800 computational power. Suja, observing him, chuckled. Dad, don't overthink it. Just trust me. He picked up his chopsticks and continued eating. Su-sun watched his son for a while, then smiled, reaching out to ruffle his hair. All right, Dad believes in you. A month later, Su-sun entered the bank with 30,000. It was the same loan officer, Mr. Liu, who hadn't even offered him a seat during his last visit, hastily dismissing him at the counter. This time was different. Upon seeing him from a distance, Manager Liu froze for a second, then quickly stood up, a broad smile spreading across his face. Mr. Su, you've come. Please, take a seat. He personally brewed tea. Presenting a cup to Su-sun. Mr. Su, take your time, no rush. Su-sun settled into the sofa, eyeing the cup of tea before glancing at Manager Liu's overly eager smile. He placed the 30,000 in cash on the table. Manager Liu, this month's interest. I've brought it, he stated. Manager Liu glanced at the stack of money, his smile widening. Mr. Su is indeed trustworthy. I knew your factory could thrive. Come, come. Let us have some tea. Su-sun lifted the cup, taking a sip. He recalled last month, standing at this very counter, where Manager Liu hadn't even spared him a glance. Now he sat here, sipping tea, watching Manager Liu bustle about. He set down the cup and stood up. Manager Liu, I must be on my way. There are matters to attend to at the factory. Manager Liu hurriedly saw him out. Mr. Su, take care. Next time you come, just call me directly. No need to queue. As Su-sun stepped out of the bank, he stood at the entrance, looking up at the sky. The sun shone brightly, yet he didn't feel the heat. He lowered his gaze to his hands. These hands had been pushed away just 3 months ago. Now, they held 30,000, repaying debts. He felt a sudden urge to laugh, mixed with the desire to cry. Returning to the factory, he found Suja squatting at the entrance, drawing patterns in the dirt with a stick. Upon seeing his father return, he lifted his head. Su-sun approached, squatting down beside his son. Dad, Suja suddenly spoke. Did Manager Liu brew tea for you today? Su-sun was taken aback. How did you know? Suja blinked. Just a guess. Su-sun looked at him and smiled. He wrapped his arms around his son, ruffling his hair. The sunlight enveloped the father and son, warm and comforting. Chapter 9. The boastful little chubby one. The summer vacation ended swiftly. That morning, Su-sun took Suja to enroll in kindergarten. The kindergarten was located on the eastern side of the town. A small bungalow surrounded by a yard adorned with colorful cartoon murals. A queue formed at the registration area, with parents accompanied by their children. Su-sun stood in line, gripping money in his hand, occasionally glancing at his son. Suja, holding his father's hand, looked up with wide eyes, taking in the surroundings. When it was their turn, the teacher at the window stated, for the big class, the tuition is 1,500. Su-sun handed over the money. The teacher glanced at him, remained silent, accepted the payment, and issued a receipt. Su-sun tucked the receipt into his pocket, looking down at his son. Suja was gazing up at him, his eyes sparkling. Let us go. Dad will take you to the classroom. Su-sun took his hand. The classroom was already filled with a group of children, chattering away, creating a cacophony that felt as if it might lift the roof. The teacher, a girl in her 20s with a ponytail, smiled, revealing 2 dimples. New classmates have arrived. She squatted down to look at Suja, asking, what is your name? Suja blinked. Suja, you'll have to introduce yourself on stage shortly. Are you scared? Suja shook his head. The teacher smiled. So brave. The class bell rang. The children sat in rows, while the teacher stood at the front, calling each child to the stage. The first child went up. stammering for a long time before finally managing to say, "My name is Xiao Ming. I like candy," and then ran back down. The second child stumbled through their introduction. The third child simply burst into tears. It was Suja's turn. He walked up to the stage, standing beside the teacher, looking at the little heads below. "My name is Suja," he began, his voice clear but still childlike. "My dad owns a factory that specializes in producing remarkable motors." Below, there was a moment of silence. Then, one child burst out laughing. Soon, several others joined in. A chubby little boy stood up from his seat, his voice booming, bragging. "My dad says factory owners are all in debt. Our family is the real wealthy one." Suja glanced at him, uninterested in engaging with such a boastful little brat. The chubby boy donned a new outfit emblazoned with Ultraman, his round face so plump that his chin was nearly obscured. The teacher hastily intervened, saying, "Wang Hao, please sit down and speak respectfully." Before the teacher could finish, Suja smiled slightly, descended the stage, and returned to his seat. The chubby boy remained standing, looking smugly at him. Suja ignored him, focusing instead on his fingers. In the afternoon, as school let out, parents gathered at the gate to pick up their children. Suja, with a new backpack slung over his shoulders, stood in line and scanned the crowd until he spotted his father at the entrance. Craning his neck to peer inside. Upon seeing his son, he beamed and waved energetically. Suja approached him. Su-sun crouched down, about to speak, when a voice suddenly interrupted. "Mr. Su." Su-sun turned to see a middle-aged man, impeccably dressed in a suit and holding a briefcase, approaching with a broad smile. "Mr. Su, what a pleasure. I've been hoping to discuss a collaboration with you." He handed over a business card, his demeanor overly respectful. Su-sun stood up, glanced at the card, and nodded politely. "Hello, Mr. Wang." "Mr. Wang?" Suja, listening nearby, blinked in surprise. He looked past Mr. Wang to see the chubby boy standing there, mouth agape like a gaping egg, staring blankly in their direction. Suddenly, Suja understood. He lowered his head, suppressing a laugh. "Mr. Su, your motors are truly exceptional." Mr. Wang continued. "My small factory is looking to pivot as well. Could you possibly supply us with a few units? I only need a few hundred a month." Su-sun replied, "You're too kind, Mr. Wang. Our production capacity is still ramping up. We can discuss this later." "Of course, we'll talk later." Mr. Wang nodded repeatedly. "I'll treat you to dinner soon." Su-sun nodded and took his son's hand as they walked away. After they had gone some distance, Suja glanced back. Wang Hao still stood there, mouth open, looking foolish, while his father appeared to be lecturing him with a displeased expression. Suja turned back and chuckled. "What is so funny?" Su-sun asked. Suja looked up at his father and said, "Dad, that Wang Hao is the one who said our family is in deep debt." Su-sun paused for a moment, then laughed. "Is that so? His father just invited me to dinner." Suja nodded. "He claimed his father is wealthier than you." Su-sun looked down at him. "What did you say to that?" Suja blinked innocently. "Yes, just a little brat. Why would I bother with him?" Su-sun was taken aback, gazing at his son's earnest little face, and suddenly burst into laughter. A 5-year-old calling his classmate a little brat? As days turned into weeks, Su-sun's factory thrived. Each morning before dawn, deliveries arrived, and even after dark, workers toiled away in the workshop. Su-sun immersed himself in the factory, sometimes going days without returning home, catching brief naps on a military cot when exhaustion set in. Suja followed a routine at kindergarten. Each morning, Engineer Li would arrive on his bicycle, placing Suju on the front rack and pedaling him to school. In the afternoons, either Engineer Li, Old Zhang, or Old Lu would take turns picking him up. "Little Zhe, your dad is busy again today," Old Lu said one day while picking him up, scratching his head. "We have a big client at the factory, and negotiations are underway." Suja nodded and climbed onto the back of the bicycle. He had grown accustomed to it. He was used to no one picking him up after school, knowing someone from the factory would always be there. He was accustomed to sitting quietly in a corner of the workshop, watching them work without the noise bothering him. He was even used to occasionally chiming in, knowing they would simply listen. One day, while squatting next to Engineer Li, who was winding wires, Suju observed him for a while. Li stood up to stretch his back, muttering, "This back of mine is becoming less reliable." Looking up at him, Suja remarked, "Grandpa Li, you might want to adjust how you wind the wires." Li looked down at him. "How should I change it?" Pointing to the wire coil in Li's hands. Suja explained, "You're winding it too tightly. It won't dissipate heat well. If you loosen it a bit, the current will be steadier." Li paused, then crouched down to unwind and rewrap the coil. After testing it, he found it indeed worked better than before. He turned to Suja, his eyes brightening. Little Zhe, how do you know so much? Suja blinked. I've just watched you do it many times. Li chuckled a couple of times and returned to work. That evening, Su Sun returned home unusually early. He sat on the edge of Su Zhu's bed, pulling out a notebook to show his son. Look, son, he said, pointing to the numbers with a gleam in his eyes. This month, our profit is 250,000. Suja leaned over to take a glance. 250,000, he nodded. Su Sun widened his eyes. What do you mean, oh? It's 250,000. Just 3 months ago, we were deep in debt. Suja looked at him and suddenly laughed. Dad, do you remember how you looked, sitting on the roadside, lost in thought 3 months ago? Su Sun paused, then chuckled. I do. I felt like the sky was falling. And now? Su Sun pondered. Now, it feels quite bright. He tucked away the notebook and affectionately ruffled his son's hair. In 3 months, we should be able to pay off a portion of the principal. By then, I'll buy you a big house. Suja shook his head. Su Sun looked at him. What's wrong? Don't you want a big house? Suja met his gaze seriously. Dad, relying solely on fan motors won't make us rich. Su Sun was taken aback. Suja continued. We need to produce electric vehicle motors. Electric vehicles? Su Sun blinked. Can that work? Suja rolled his eyes. He climbed onto his bed, sitting cross-legged and looking at his father. Dad, just take a look around. More and more people are riding electric bikes. Delivery workers, commuters, even parents picking up their kids. This is definitely the future. Su Sun considered this, realizing it was indeed true. Every day on his way to the factory, he saw dozens of electric bikes whizzing by. However, he felt troubled. But we don't understand electric vehicle motors. He scratched his head. Aren't they different from fan motors? Suja looked at him, silently thinking, I've been waiting for you to say that. But he kept his expression neutral and merely nodded. They are different. Then what do we do? Suja blinked. Dad, don't rush. I'm tired and want to sleep. Su Sun was momentarily taken aback, then chuckled. All right, sleep. I won't disturb you. He stood up, tucked Suja in, quietly turned off the light, and stepped outside. Suja closed his eyes, his consciousness drifting into his mind. Ding. The interface for the future technology city unfolded in the darkness, a deep blue light illuminating the surroundings. He opened the tech tree and scrolled down. The alternating current motor technology, white, had been unlocked, the icon glowing. Further down, he saw the direct current brushless motor technology, blue. He clicked on the description. Direct current brushless motor, blue quality. Leading technology points. 50 more energy efficient than ordinary motors, nearly silent. Lifespan 3 times that of traditional motors. Computation cost, 3,000. Current computation, 2,500. Suja stared at that number, frowning. He was still 500 short. Exiting the interface, he opened his eyes. The room was dark, with moonlight streaming through the window, casting a small patch of light on the floor. He heard some movement next door. His father was still awake, rummaging through something. 500 computation. How could he make his father happy again? He turned over, staring at the ceiling. His father was so busy every day, and he had moments of joy when he signed a contract, when he received payment, when the workers delivered on time. However, each instance of happiness translated into different calculations. Moreover, these emotions were only triggered during times of significant fluctuation. Ordinary happiness rarely triggered computation, if at all. Suja sighed. He turned again, facing the wall. He needed to devise a way to evoke his father's excitement once more. Chapter 10. The Versailles of the parent-teacher meeting opportunities came more swiftly than Suja had anticipated. On the day the kindergarten parent meeting notification was issued, Su Sun deliberately unearthed a long-stored white shirt from his wardrobe. Although the collar was slightly yellowed, it was impeccably clean. Dad, why are you wearing that? Suja squatted beside him, observing as he changed. Su Sun adjusted the collar in front of the mirror, replying, It's a parent meeting. I can't very well wear work attire, can I? Suja remained silent, merely watching his father's preparations. As they prepared to leave, Su Sun turned back to glance at his son. How do I look? Acceptable? Suja nodded, yes. Su Sun smiled and scooped him up. Let us go. The classroom was filled with parents from the town, many of whom were familiar with each other and engaged in conversation. Su Sun found a corner seat and placed his son on the adjacent chair. Upon sitting, Suja noticed a familiar head in the second row ahead, plump and nearly obscured by the neck. It was Wang Hao. Beside him sat Mr. Wang. Impeccably dressed in a suit, his hair slicked back, animatedly conversing with another parent, his voice resonating. My factory secured several large contracts this year. We've been extraordinarily busy. There's no choice. Clients are drawn to our quality. The neighboring parent nodded eagerly. Mr. Wong, your reputation precedes you. We wish we could secure business like yours. Mr. Wong waved dismissively, his eyes crinkling with a smile. Too kind, too kind. It's merely a small venture, just making a living. Suja diverted his gaze, focusing on his fingers. Observing this, Su Sun leaned over to whisper, "Is that your classmate Wang Hao's father?" Suja nodded. Su Sun glanced at Mr. Wang's back, but remained silent. The parent meeting commenced. The teacher first discussed the children's performance this semester, followed by the kindergarten's plans, and finally shifted the topic. Next, let us invite a few parents to share their parenting experiences for mutual learning. No sooner had the words left her mouth than Mr. Wang raised his hand. Mr. Wang Hao, would you like to go first? The teacher smiled and nodded. Mr. Wang stood, approached the front, and cleared his throat. Hello, fellow parents. I am Wang Hao's father, running a small factory engaged in parts manufacturing. He paused, then began to expound enthusiastically. He spoke about teaching his child the values of honesty and integrity, his journey of starting a business from scratch, the number of orders his factory had received this year, and the recent vehicle he had acquired. As parents, it is paramount that we set a good example for our children. No matter how busy I am, I make time to be with my child and show him how I interact with clients. His delivery was engrossing. Some parents nodded in agreement, while others chimed in. In the corner, Su Sun listened quietly. Suja glanced up at his father, who maintained a neutral expression, absorbing the presentation. Mr. Wang spoke for nearly 10 minutes before concluding. As he returned to his seat, several parents nodded in acknowledgement, and he responded with a bright smile, his face glowing even more. The teacher called upon several other parents, each offering brief comments before sitting down. Suddenly, the teacher looked towards the corner. Is Suja's father here? Suja's father? Su Sun hesitated for a moment before standing up. Here. The teacher smiled at him. I hear your factory is doing well lately. Would you mind sharing with everyone? A brief silence enveloped the classroom. A few parents turned to look at him, while Mr. Wang also turned to glance before returning his attention elsewhere. Su Sun stood there, momentarily bewildered. He scratched his head and smiled sheepishly. There's not much to say, really. Just that we developed a good motor that saves 30 more energy than Japanese products. The clients are clamoring for it. His tone was casual, as if discussing the weather. The classroom was silent for 2 seconds before erupting into a flurry of questions. A motor? What kind of motor? 30 more energy efficient? Is that true? Which factory are you from? Are the motors for sale? I just bought a silent fan a few days ago. Is it from your factory? Several parents stood up, bombarding him with inquiries. That fan seems to be from Chunfeng factory. Yes. That's the Chunfeng factory. The silent fan. My family bought one too. I was wondering why it was so energy efficient. Turns out the motor was made by you. One parent exclaimed, Su Boss. Let us add each other on WeChat. I have some business idea like to discuss. Su Boss, do you need any parts? I have channels. Surrounded by a throng of curious parents, Su Sun found it challenging to keep up with the rapid-fire questions. Suja, sitting on his chair, watched his father, caught off guard and flustered in the midst of the crowd, his expression a blend of innocence and confusion, as if he were unsure how things had escalated to this point. He couldn't help but chuckle at the sight. Glancing over at Mr. Wang, he noticed that Mr. Wang remained in his original seat, the parents who had previously surrounded him now having gravitated towards Su Sun. The smile had faded from Mr. Wang's face. His lips pressed together, alternating between hues of pale and flush. Suja stole a glance at him before averting his gaze. Suddenly, he recalled Wang Hao's loud proclamation in the classroom, declaring that his family was the truly wealthy one. At that moment, Mr. Wang had sat in the parent section, beaming as he watched his son. Now he sat there, ignored. Suja lowered his head, stifling laughter. The parent meeting concluded. After a struggle, Su Sun finally extricated himself from the crowd and located his son. Let us go, let us hurry. He pulled Suja along, wiping the sweat from his brow as they walked. Dad, Suja suddenly spoke. What you said earlier was pretty impressive. Su Sun paused, looking down at him. Suja gazed up, his eyes sparkling. Su Sun chuckled and affectionately ruffled his hair. All right, enough teasing. Let us head home. Ding. A clear notification sound echoed in Suja's mind. Su Sun's Pride 500 computational power. Current computational power, 3000. Unlockable. Complete technical blueprint for brushless DC motor, blue quality. Would you like to unlock? Suja's heart raced. He closed his eyes and silently recited, "Unlock." Boom. A torrent of information surged into his mind. The structure of the brushless DC motor, the design of the stator and rotor, the selection criteria for permanent magnetic materials, the installation positions of hull components, the circuit diagrams of controllers, and the connection methods of windings. Each parameter, every process, every blueprint was vividly etched into his consciousness. He envisioned the motor in motion, consuming 50 less energy than ordinary motors, nearly silent, with a lifespan 3 times that of traditional motors. He opened his eyes. His father was leading him forward, still muttering. Those people were relentless, asking all sorts of questions. I didn't know how to respond. Suja looked at him and suddenly smiled. Dad, next time you speak on stage, you won't just be saying it saves 30 more energy than Japanese products. The setting sun elongated the shadows of the father and son. As Suja walked beside his father, a small smile gracing his lips. Chapter 11. The second blueprint the following day was Saturday. Su-sun, rarely absent from the factory, sat at the table poring over account books. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the dense array of numbers before him. He became engrossed, occasionally jotting notes in the margins. Suja lay at the other end of the table, his homework spread out before him, a pencil in hand, diligently working on his assignments. Su-sun glanced up occasionally, observing his son with his head bowed, pencil gliding across the paper, assuming he was engaged in another doodling exercise. He paid no further attention and returned to his accounts, unaware that beneath the pencil lay intricate drawings, not homework. Suja sketched slowly, even more so than before. The blueprint for the brushless DC motor was far more complex than that of an AC motor. Just the circuit diagram for the controller would take him half a day to complete. He drew a few lines, paused to ponder, then continued. Occasionally, he would make a mistake, erasing it, and starting anew. The shavings from his eraser accumulated into a small pile, which he blew away, scattering them onto his homework. Su-sun heard a noise and looked up. What could be so serious? Suja, without lifting his head, replied, "Homework." Su-sun chuckled. "Homework for 2 hours? What assignment did your teacher give you?" Suja remained silent, continuing to draw. Su-sun shook his head and returned to his ledger. Another hour passed. Suja set down his pencil and picked up the paper, examining it from top to bottom. Stator with 36 slots, rotor with 4 poles, permanent magnet material, Hall element model, controller circuit diagram, winding method, each parameter, was correct. He pulled the paper out from under his homework book, stood up, and approached his father. "Dad." Su-sun raised his head. Suja handed over the paper. "This motor is even more impressive than the last one. It's designed specifically for electric vehicles." Su-sun paused for a moment, taking it in hand. He glanced down, and his eyes widened. He brought the paper closer, squinting to examine it. After about 5 seconds, his hands began to tremble. He placed the paper on the table, pressing down with his hand, and began to read line by line. Stator, rotor, permanent magnet, Hall element, controller, each component meticulously illustrated, every dimension clearly marked. The efficiency parameter read, 92. He lifted his gaze to his son, then looked back down to continue reading. Lifespan, 20,000 hours. Noise level, nearly 0. He read through it once, then again. After the second reading, he went through it a third time. Suja stood by, watching as his father's hands shook more violently, noticing his father's eyes slowly redden, observing his lips move, but no words came forth. "Dad," he called out. Su-sun did not respond, still focused on the blueprint. Suja called again, "Dad." Only then did Su-sun look up. He gazed at his son, his eyes red, his expression somewhat dazed, as if still lost in the drawing. "Son," he began, his voice hoarse, "Is this really what your grandfather taught you?" Suja looked at his father's face, thin, with red-rimmed eyes, lips trembling, and the hand gripping his shoulder also shaking. He nodded yes. Su-sun stared at him for several seconds. Suddenly, he pulled his son into a tight embrace. Suja felt a bit breathless, but did not resist. He sensed his father's chest heaving, felt his back trembling, and noticed something warm dripping onto his shoulder, dampening it. He remained silent, resting against his father's shoulder without moving. After a long while, Su-sun released him, cupping his face in both hands, gazing into his eyes. "Son," his voice still hoarse, "do you know what this is?" Suja blinked. "I know. An electric vehicle motor. Do you realize what this could mean for our factory?" Suja pondered. "We could earn a lot of money." Su-sun paused, then smiled. As he laughed, tears streamed down his face. He wiped at them with the back of his hand, but they wouldn't clear. Yes, he said. His voice choked. We could earn a lot of money. It could turn our lives around completely. Those who look down on us will have to address us as Boss Su in the future. Suja watched him in silence. Su Sun suddenly stood up, scooping his son into his arms and spinning around the room. 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 turns. Son, he exclaimed as he turned. Do you know what you've given your father? You've given him the dignity to earn respect from others. During the 3 months when the factory was on the brink of collapse, Su Sun truly experienced the harshness of life. Although the business was currently thriving, the ceiling was already in sight, and there remained a significant bank loan unpaid. But now, everything had changed. Suja felt dizzy from the spinning. Clutching his father's collar, he looked at his father's face, red-eyed, tears flowing, yet smiling like a fool. He suddenly recalled the last time his father had smiled in a previous life. When was it? He couldn't remember. But he recalled the last gaze his father had given him then. His father had been lying in a hospital bed, emaciated, holding his hand, saying, "Dad is sorry for not providing you with a good life." That look was etched in his memory forever. Now, his father looked at him with that same gaze. But it was different. Back then, it was filled with guilt. Now it was, he couldn't quite describe it. After enough spinning, Su Sun set him down, picked up the blueprint, and examined it again. Then he turned and dashed outside. I'm going to find Engineer Lee. The door slammed shut. Suja stood inside, listening to the footsteps outside fade away. He looked down at the hand he had used to draw, still dusted with pencil shavings. He walked to the desk, picked up an eraser, and wiped away the pencil marks on his homework book. Ding. Su Sun's joy 200 computing power. Su Sun's pride 300 computing power. Current computing power 500. Su Zhou was taken aback. 500? More than last time. He turned to the doorway. That old man sure could move quickly. Chapter 12. Engineer Lee Neal's Engineer Lee was winding wires in the workshop when he was abruptly pulled into a corner. Hey. He turned to see Su Sun. Mr. Su, what is going on? I'm busy. Su Sun said nothing, laying a blueprint before him. Look at this. Engineer Lee glanced down. A second look made his eyes widen even more than before. He snatched the blueprint, bringing it close, practically pressing his face against it. Mr. Su. His voice had changed pitch. Is this a DC brushless motor? Su Sun nodded. Engineer Lee's hands began to tremble. He flipped the blueprint back and forth, examining the stator and rotor, the winding and magnet arrangement, the Hall element, and controller circuit diagram. This thing. He raised his head, his eyes round with astonishment. This is high-tech. Only the Japanese and Germans can produce this. Very few can do it domestically. Su Sun lowered his voice, leaning closer, Old Lee. I'll ask you one thing. Can we make it? Engineer Lee didn't answer, continuing to study the blueprint. He scrutinized it for a full 5 minutes. Then he looked up, a look on his face that Su Sun had never seen before. Mr. Su, he began, his voice slightly airy, who drew this blueprint? Su Sun did not reply. Engineer Lee stared at him, waiting a few seconds, then looked back down at the blueprint. This design is brilliant, he murmured, pointing at the blueprint with his finger. Look here, the winding method is completely different. It saves a lot of copper wire compared to ordinary motors. Yet the efficiency is even higher. And here, the magnet arrangement has also been optimized, increasing the magnetic field utilization by at least 10%. The more he spoke, the more excited he became, his voice rising. Mr. Su. He suddenly looked up. If we can make this, domestic electric vehicle manufacturers will be fighting over it. Su Sun gazed at him, his eyes warming with emotion. Then let us make it, he replied. Engineer Lee was momentarily stunned, then nodded vigorously. Let us do it. For the next 2 weeks, the two of them immersed themselves in the workshop, working day and night. This time was different. The DC brushless motor was far more complex than the AC motor. The magnets had to be specially customized, using neodymium iron boron material, grade N38SH, with dimensional tolerances controlled within 0.05 millimeters. They visited several magnet manufacturers before finding one willing to take the order. The controller was even more troublesome. The circuit board required meticulous design, component selection, and programming. Engineer Lee unearthed every resource at his disposal and enlisted the help of a seasoned electronics expert. After 10 arduous days of toil, the financial strain was palpable. The magnetic steel cost $20,000, the controller another $20,000, and miscellaneous components added yet another $10,000, culminating in an expenditure of $50,000. $50,000 each night. As Su Sun tallied the expenses, his heart trembled. Yet, with the dawn of each new day, he returned to the workshop. Suja remained in a corner, observing their frenetic activity. At times, when Engineer Li was sweating profusely from winding wires, he would fetch a glass of water. On other occasions, when the master technician furrowed his brow while adjusting the controller, Suja stood silently by, a mere spectator. One day, after a lengthy adjustment session, the master suddenly slapped his thigh, exclaiming, "No, the resistor here is incorrect." Suja leaned in for a closer look. "Grandpa, shouldn't that be a 10? The master paused, glanced at the circuit diagram, then at the board, and smacked his forehead. Indeed, the little one has sharp eyes. After replacing the resistor and making further adjustments, everything was in order. The master turned to Suja, his gaze oddly inquisitive. "How did you notice that?" Suja blinked innocently. "You just mentioned it." The master scratched his head. "Did I say that?" However, he had no time to ponder further and resumed his work. Half a month later, the first prototype was assembled. Engineer Li secured the motor to the testing platform, took a deep breath, and looked at Su Sun, who stood nearby. Palms slick with sweat. "Let it turn," he instructed. Li pressed the switch, and the motor began to spin. It hummed softly, almost imperceptibly. Li momentarily froze, hastily grabbing the ammeter. "Current, 3.1 amperes. His voice trembled. A standard motor of similar power typically required around 6 amperes. The efficiency was an astounding 92.5, even exceeding the specifications on the blueprint. He brought a decibel meter closer. Noise, 22 decibels. Almost inaudible. He set the decibel meter down and touched the motor's casing. Temperature rise. After running for half an hour, it was only 20 degrees above room temperature. A standard motor would be at least 40 degrees. After examining the casing, he stood there, frozen in disbelief. Su Sun approached, wanting to say something. Suddenly, Li bent his knee and knelt on the ground. Su Sun was taken aback and rushed to assist him. "Old Li, what are you doing?" Li remained on the floor, lifting his head to gaze at the still spinning motor, his eyes glistening with tears. "Mr. Su," he began, his voice choked with emotion, "in my 40 years of repairing motors, I have never encountered anything this remarkable." He wiped his face and continued, "I thought my life would end in mediocrity, merely waiting for retirement to care for my grandchildren. I never imagined that in my twilight years, I could create such a motor." Tears streamed down his face as he turned to Su Sun. "Mr. Su, my life has been worthwhile." Su Sun, too, felt the sting of tears in his eyes. He bent down, placing both hands under Li to help him up. "Old Li, rise. We're just getting started." Li stood, wiping his face with his sleeve, casting one last glance at the motor. "Mr. Su," he suddenly asked, "who drew this blueprint?" Su Sun fell silent, a vivid image flashing in his mind. His son leaning over a table, slowly sketching with a pencil. After completing the drawing, he stood up and handed it to him, cheerfully exclaiming, "Dad, this motor is even better than the last one." His eyes welled with tears once more. Li, watching him, waited quietly for an explanation. When none came, he turned back to the motor, seemingly unable to tear his gaze away. The workshop hummed with the sound of the motor. So soft, so gentle, while a question echoed in Su Sun's mind. How many secrets did his son still conceal? Chapter 13. The inspection of the electric vehicle factory. The prototype was completed. Su Sun took the motor and spent a week visiting various local electric vehicle parts markets. On the first day, he entered the bustling street lined with shops selling an array of goods. In the first store, he placed the motor on the counter and demonstrated its performance. The proprietor listened for a few moments and nodded. "The sound is indeed quite low," he remarked, then inquired, "What is the name of your factory?" Su Sun provided the name. The proprietor pondered for a moment, then shook his head. "Never heard of it. A small factory, I presume. I cannot take the risk of using products from a small factory. If they fail, who do I turn to?" Su Sun was momentarily taken aback, eager to explain, but the proprietor had already turned his attention to his phone. He reluctantly packed up the motor and exited. The second, third, and fourth shops echoed the same sentiment. Too small a factory to trust. "Have you ever produced electric motors before?" "No." "Then I definitely can't take that risk. Perhaps when you grow larger." On the fifth day, Su Sun emerged from the last shop and stood on the street corner, lost in thought. He looked down at the motor in his hands. It spun so beautifully, even surpassing the quality of Japanese products, yet no one wanted it. He suddenly recalled 3 months prior, when he had sat on the roadside, contemplating the fan motor, also unwanted. Back then, old Zhao had taken it. But this time felt different. Old Zhao was knowledgeable and willing to experiment. These shopkeepers only recognized established brands. He sighed, stowed the motor in his bag, and headed home. That evening, Su Sun sat at the table, spread out the business cards of those who had rejected him, scrutinizing each one before tossing them into the drawer. Suja, beside him, observed in silence. His expression was inscrutable, but Suja could sense his father's disheartenment, not the loud, dramatic kind, but a quiet resignation as he methodically put away the cards. It reminded him of his past life, where his father had faced repeated rejections, slowly packing away the cards, never to bring them out again, leading to the factory's demise. Dad, he finally spoke. Su Sun looked up. Were those all small shops you visited? Su Sun nodded. They don't dare to use our products. Suja continued. Why not seek larger factories? Su Sun paused, his expression momentarily blank. Larger factories? Suja nodded. Ningda electric vehicle. The largest one around. You should approach their procurement manager. Su Sun furrowed his brow. But those big factories have higher entry barriers. Would they even take interest in my small factory? Suja tilted his head. Dad, think about it. Why are the small shops hesitant to use your motors? Su Sun contemplated. They fear the risks. Exactly. Small shops lack technical departments to assess your motor's quality. They can only rely on brand reputation. But larger factories are different. Suja explained. They have technical departments that can test and evaluate. If your motor is truly good, they won't care about the brand. They will care about the data. Su Sun regarded him, his expression complex. How do you know all this? Suja blinked innocently. I saw it on TV. Those entrepreneur interviews mention it all the time. Su Sun stared at him for several seconds. This son, having learned from television, seemed to possess more insight than he had accumulated over 3 decades of navigating the world. A smile broke on his face as he reached out to ruffle Suja's hair. All right, Dad will follow your advice. The next morning, Su Sun carefully wrapped the motor, placing it in his bag as he stepped out. The Ningda electric vehicle factory, located in the eastern part of the city, sprawled over a vast area, with security personnel stationed at the entrance. Su Sun approached the main gate, only to be stopped. Whom do you seek? Su Sun replied. I'm looking for Manager Zhang from the procurement department. The guard scrutinized him. Do you have an appointment? Su Sun shook his head. The guard smiled politely. Without an appointment, you cannot enter. Please schedule one first. Su Sun stood at the entrance, watching the automatic doors close. He lingered for a moment, then found a corner, set his bag down, and sat down to wait. At noon, under the blazing sun, he used his bag for a cushion, sitting in the shade as he fixed his gaze on the entrance. In the afternoon, the sun hung low in the west. He rose to stretch his numb legs and continued to wait. The security guard changed shifts. The newcomer glanced at him but paid him no mind. As the clock struck quitting time, the factory workers began to stream out in waves, some on bicycles, others on foot, and a few in cars. Su Sun scrutinized the faces of the departing crowd, searching for a man he had never met but knew only by name. Manager Zhang, a man in his 40s. With no more than instinct to guide him, he continued his search. As the throng thinned, a middle-aged man in a white shirt emerged from the mass, carrying a briefcase, and with his head bowed. Su Sun sprang to his feet and rushed towards him. Manager Zhang. The man jumped back in surprise, nearly dropping his briefcase. He looked up at Su Sun, his brow furrowing, his expression one of wariness and clear displeasure. The security guard at the entrance turned his attention towards them. Who are you? Manager Zhang inquired, his tone icy. Gasping for breath, Su Sun positioned himself in front of him. Manager Zhang, I am Su Sun, the owner of a small factory that produces motors. I didn't make an appointment, but I've been waiting all day and would like to show you something. Manager Zhang's frown deepened. He had seen countless individuals like this, salespeople, networking opportunists, and those seeking favors, employing every trick in the book. Blocking the doorway was the most rudimentary tactic. If you didn't make an appointment, then come back another time, he replied, impatience creeping into his voice as he turned to leave. Su Sun hurriedly retrieved a motor from his bag, holding it up before him. Manager Zhang, just give me 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. I assure you, this motor is far superior to what you currently use. Just take a look. Manager Zhang hesitated for a moment, glancing down at the motor. Then, he raised his gaze to Su Sun, standing there, holding the motor. With his face reddened by the sun and beads of sweat on his forehead, Su Sun's eyes conveyed a seriousness that transcended mere pleading. It was a sincerity that reminded Manager Zhang of his own youthful determination. With a resigned sigh, he relented. Just 5 minutes, he said. Su Sun promptly set the motor on the edge of a nearby flower bed and retrieved a battery and controller from his bag, swiftly connecting the wires. Manager Zhang stood beside him, observing his industriousness. Once the connections were made, Su Sun pressed the switch, and the motor whirred to life. It was remarkably quiet. Manager Zhang took a step closer, leaning in to listen. Indeed, it was exceptionally silent. He stepped back, scrutinizing the motor, which operated smoothly with scarcely any vibration. He looked up at Su Sun, who then produced an ammeter, attaching it for Manager Zhang's inspection. You see, it draws only 3.1 amperes. A typical motor of the same power consumes about 6 amperes, achieving an efficiency of 92.5. Manager Zhang glanced at the gauge before extending his hand to lift the motor, examining it from every angle for approximately 30 seconds. When he finally raised his gaze to meet Su Sun's, his expression had shifted. This motor, where did it come from? Su Sun beamed with an earnest smile. I made it myself. Manager Zhang stared at him for several seconds before suddenly asking, You said you waited all day? Su Sun nodded. I arrived at 8 this morning. Manager Zhang fell silent, his eyes drifting back to the motor in his hands. Come with me. Chapter 14. The new order from New Day. Manager Zhang ushered Su Sun into his office. As the door swung open, Su Sun was greeted by a subtle aroma of tea. The office was modest, featuring a dark wooden desk, a row of filing cabinets, and a corner piled with disassembled motors. The window was ajar, allowing the evening breeze to flutter the curtains gently. Please, have a seat. Manager Zhang gestured to the chair opposite his desk before moving behind it to sit. Su Sun settled into the chair, his palms resting on his knees, slick with sweat. Manager Zhang placed the motor on the desk, taking his time to speak. He retrieved a pair of glasses from a drawer, donned them slowly, and began to examine the motor meticulously. After a considerable time, he lifted his gaze. I've reviewed your motor's specifications, and I must say, they are indeed impressive. He removed his glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose pensively before continuing. However, I need to know your factory's production capacity. How many units can you produce in a month? Su Sun took a deep breath, opening his mouth to speak, but finding his throat dry. He swallowed hard before responding. Our factory is just starting out, with limited equipment and around 20 workers. Currently, we can produce a maximum of 2,000 units per month. Manager Zhang remained silent, placing his glasses on the desk and leaning back in his chair, lightly tapping his fingers on the surface. Once, twice, thrice. Su Sun watched the rhythmic motion of his fingers, his heart racing. He understood that 2,000 units might seem insignificant to them. A large manufacturer like New Day would purchase tens of thousands of motors each month. It was only natural for them to overlook his small output. As this thought crossed his mind, perspiration trickled from his palms. After a few moments, Manager Zhang ceased his tapping and leaned forward, crossing his hands on the desk as he regarded Su Sun. Mr. Su, he began. Su Sun instinctively straightened in his seat. Your motor, I've tested it, and it indeed outperforms those from our current suppliers, Manager Zhang stated. However, your factory is small, and that limited capacity is a concern. Su Sun nodded, remaining silent. Manager Zhang studied him, a smile suddenly breaking across his face. You're not in a hurry to defend yourself. Su Sun paused, then returned the smile, his sincerity evident. Manager Zhang, I speak only the truth. Our factory is indeed small. There is no point in pretending otherwise. Manager Zhang regarded him for several seconds, then leaned back in his chair, tapping the table twice more. Here is the deal, he proposed. We will initially order 2,000 units. If your quality remains consistent, we can consider a long-term partnership. Su Sun was taken aback. He opened his mouth to respond, but found himself at a loss for words. Manager Zhang, observing his astonishment, couldn't he help but laugh. What is the matter? Are you not interested? Of course I want it. Su Sun hurriedly exclaimed, his voice slightly higher in pitch. Manager Zhang, I will definitely ensure quality. Manager Zhang nodded, retrieving a contract from his drawer and sliding it across the table to him. Take a look. If everything is in order, please sign. Su Sun took the contract, peering down at the text. The words danced before his eyes. After several moments, he realized he hadn't absorbed a single line. He looked up at Manager Zhang and confessed, Manager Zhang, I'm a bit overwhelmed right now. It's hard to focus. I trust you. Just point out where to sign, and I will. Manager Zhang was momentarily taken aback, then chuckled, adjusting his glasses. He pointed to the signature line on the last page. Here. Su Sun picked up the pen, leaned in, and carefully inscribed his name, his hand trembling slightly as he made an effort to write neatly. After signing, he pushed the contract back across the table and lifted his gaze. Manager Zhang took the contract, reviewed it, then retrieved a check from the drawer, placing it on the table and nudging it towards Su Sun with 2 fingers. A deposit of 200,000. Mr. Su, here's to a fruitful collaboration. Su Sun stared at the check, the figure of 200,000 staggering him. He reached out, intending to take it, but as his fingers grazed the edge, they recoiled. He looked up at Manager Zhang, wanting to say something, but his throat felt constricted, and he merely moved his lips without uttering a sound. Manager Zhang observed him, a glimmer of understanding in his gaze. He stood, circumnavigating the desk to stand before Su Sun, extending his hand. Mr. Su, he said, work diligently. Su Sun quickly rose to shake his hand. The grip was firm and dry. Thank you, Manager Zhang, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. As he exited the grand doors of New Day, night had fallen. Su Sun stood at the threshold, gazing up at the sky. The stars had emerged, twinkling brightly, one by one. He pulled the check from his pocket, holding it up to the streetlight. 200,000. The digits gleamed under the light. He flipped the check over, inspecting the back, then returned it to the front. Scrutinizing it once more. Carefully, he tucked it into the innermost pocket of his coat, pressing down to ensure its safety. He hurried home, walking briskly. Upon pushing the door open, I found my son sprawled over the desk, his homework spread out before him, a pencil clutched in his small hand. Hearing the sound, Suja lifted his head. I approached him, standing in front, gazing at him. Suja blinked. Dad, what's wrong? I remained silent, crouching down, my hands resting on his shoulders as I studied his face for several seconds. Suja, slightly bewildered by my gaze, called out, Dad? Suddenly, I broke into a smile. As the laughter bubbled up, my eyes began to brim with tears. I swept my son into a warm embrace, holding him tightly. Son. I buried my face in his small shoulder, my voice muffled. Shinji has ordered 2,000 of our motors. Suja paused, taken aback. 2,000 units? I nodded, releasing him to meet his gaze. My eyes were red, tears swirling within, yet my face was adorned with joy. 2,000 units. The deposit is 200,000. Son, we are going to prosper. Suja regarded my worn face, gaunt and tear-stained, yet grinning like a fool. Unable to contain himself, he laughed as well. Dad. He reached out, brushing his hand across my cheek. I was momentarily stunned, then laughed even harder. I set him down but remained crouched, still looking at him. Son, I asked, what do you think we should do next? Suja tilted his head, pondering. We should expand our production capacity. Once we finish those 2,000 units. If more orders come in, we won't be able to keep up. I nodded in agreement. That's precisely what I was thinking. Old Lee suggested purchasing 2 more winding machines and hiring a few more people. We could produce 3,000 to 4,000 units a month. Suja gazed at me. Dad, aren't you tired? I hesitated for a moment, then chuckled, ruffling his hair. Not at all. There's no profit without hard work. I'm not afraid of fatigue. Ding. Su Sun's joy, 50 points. Su Sun's pride, 100 points. Suja quietly glanced at the system interface, a faint smile playing at his lips. 2 months later, all 2,000 motors were delivered. The technology department at Shinji conducted thorough testing. That afternoon, Manager Zhang personally called. Mr. Su, his voice was cheerful on the other end. We have completed testing your batch. The technical department concluded that the performance is stable, quality reliable, and all indicators surpass those of existing suppliers. Clutching my phone, my heart raced. Come by next week when you have time. We'll finalize the annual contract, Manager Zhang proposed. Sure, I replied. I'll be there next week. After hanging up, I stood still for several seconds, then turned and dashed off. Old Lee. I burst into the workshop, my voice resonating throughout. Old Lee. We're about to sign the annual contract with Shinji. Li Gong, who was winding wire, nearly dropped the coil in shock. He stood up, his eyes wide. Annual contract. How many? I gasped, grinning. Not specified yet, but it will definitely be substantial. A week later, I found myself seated in Manager Zhang's office once more. A contract lay before me. Monthly supply of 5,000 units. Annual order of 60,000 units. I picked up the pen and signed without hesitation. Manager Zhang collected the contract, leaning back in his chair, observing me. Mr. Su, he suddenly spoke. I looked up. Manager Zhang smiled. I checked on your factory. 3 months ago, it was on the brink of collapse, buried in debt. Now, here you are, signing a contract for 60,000 annual orders. He paused, leaning forward. peering into my eyes. I'm just curious, where did your motors come from? I hesitated, meeting his gaze, sensing his genuine curiosity. However, I chose silence. After a few moments of waiting for my response, he waved his hand dismissively. All right, go ahead. Keep up the good work. Rising, I approached the door, glancing back one last time. Manager Zhang was engrossed in the contract, not looking up. Exiting the Shinji premises, the sky had darkened once more. Instead of heading home, I made my way to the factory. The workshop was empty, the workers had gone home. The lights were off, with only the moonlight filtering through the windows, illuminating the winding machines. I wandered around the workshop, gently touching the oldest winding machine, its casing marked by years of wear. I ran my fingers over the two newly purchased machines, their paint still pristine and untouched by oil. Then I settled onto the army cot in the corner. It was once my sleeping place, now rarely used. Sitting there, I gazed at the machines illuminated by moonlight, recalling moments of sitting by the roadside, clutching a motor, lost in thought about the uncertain tomorrow. I remembered my son handing me the first drawing, his little voice declaring, "Dad, this motor is better than the current one." Lowering my head, tears fell upon my hands. I made no effort to wipe them away, remaining there for a long while. Finally, I retrieved my phone, scrolling through to find a picture. It was of my son, candidly taken while he was drawing at the table, capturing just the back of his head, the light casting a glow on his fluffy hair. I looked at the photo and softly murmured, "Son, your dad's life has been worthwhile." The moonlight poured in through the window, enveloping me. Chapter 15. The envy of rivals. Su Sun's factory had ignited a fervor, not merely a small flame, but a blaze whispered throughout the entire town. First, the news of the 60,000 unit annual contract with Shinji spread, followed by several smaller factories placing orders in a similar fashion, and then the part suppliers who had previously rejected him began reaching out to inquire about potential supplies. The machines in the workshop never ceased their operation, while three-wheeled carts lined up outside for loading. The news reached Yongqiang Motor Factory while its owner, Lu Yongqiang, was sipping tea in his office. Upon hearing the report from his subordinate, he halted mid-sip, his teacup suspended in the air, immobilized for several moments. "What did you say?" He set down the cup, fixing his gaze on the informant. "That almost defunct little factory has secured an order for 60,000 units from Shinji?" The subordinate nodded. It said that Shinji initiated the contract, claiming their motors outperformed Japanese products. Lu Yongqiang fell silent for a few seconds, then slammed his cup down on the table, splashing tea across the surface. "Send someone to investigate," he commanded, "find out the origins of their motors." 3 days later, the findings were reported. "Mr. Lu, we've uncovered the truth," the subordinate informed him, standing before his boss. "Those motors are produced in-house, with technology significantly superior to ours. They consume 30 less power, produce half the noise, and have a longer lifespan." Lu Yongqiang leaned back in his chair, tapping his fingers on the table, silent. Memories flooded back of last year, when a man named Su Sun had been begging for loans, being scolded at his doorstep. Now he was here, securing orders from Shinji and encroaching upon Lu's business. Rising, Lu walked to the window, gazing outside. "Arrange a meeting with him," he instructed. "Just tell him I wish to discuss a potential collaboration." When Su Sun received the call, he was in the workshop discussing new machinery with Li Gong. "Yongqiang Motors, Lu?" He paused, surprised. What could he want? The voice on the other end replied, "Mr. Lu wishes to discuss a collaboration with you. When would you be available?" After a moment's thought, Su Sun responded, "All right, let us meet tomorrow afternoon." He shared the news with Li Gong, who frowned. "Yongqiang Motors? They're our old rivals. Their factory is large. He never thought highly of our humble establishment. Now they suddenly come knocking? Sounds fishy." Su Sun nodded. "I know. Let us meet and see what they have to say." The next afternoon, Lu Yongqiang arrived in person, driving a sleek black sedan, parking at the workshop entrance. Stepping out, he was impeccably dressed in a suit, his shoes polished to a shine, a leather bag in hand. I stepped out to greet him. Lu Yongqiang appraised me with a smile. "Mr. Su, it's an honor to finally meet you." I extended my hand. "Mr. Lu, please come in." The two of us took seats in the office. I poured a cup of tea, offering it to him. Lu Yongqiang lifted the cup, taking a sip before setting it down. Boss Su was direct and did not beat around the bush. "I have taken a liking to the motors produced by your factory. Shall we collaborate?" Su Sun regarded him and inquired, "What kind of collaboration does President Lu envision?" Lu Yongqiang leaned forward with a smile. "I will provide the capital, and you will supply the technology. Together, we can establish a large factory with equal equity shares. With my connections and your expertise, earning several million annually will be a cinch. After a moment of silence, Su Sun shook his head. Thank you for your kind offer, President Liu. But my factory is still in its infancy. I prefer not to partner with anyone at this time. Liu Yongqiang's smile faltered. He scrutinized Su Sun for a few seconds, then smiled again and stood up. Very well, Boss Su has his own plans. I shall not impose. He extended his hand, signaling his departure. Su Sun rose to shake it. As Liu Yongqiang reached the door, he suddenly turned back, casting a glance at Su Sun that caused a flutter in his heart. Though he could not articulate the feeling, Liu Yongqiang left. In the following days, trouble began to brew at the factory. First, several longtime clients called, hesitantly inquiring, Boss Su, I heard there are quality issues with your motors? Rumor has it that you are using subpar materials. Su Sun was taken aback. Who said such a thing? That's impossible. We have tested every single unit. The client replied, I don't know, but the rumors are circulating. You should clarify this matter. After hanging up, Su Sun sat there, motionless for quite some time. Then, representatives from the Industrial and Commercial Bureau arrived. 2 uniformed officials entered the workshop, stating they needed to audit the accounts. Su Sun produced the ledgers for their inspection. After a thorough examination that lasted all afternoon, they found nothing amiss. As they were leaving, one of them patted Su Sun on the shoulder. Boss Su, someone has reported you for tax evasion. We investigated and found no issues. However, have you offended anyone recently? Su Sun was momentarily stunned and remained silent. Once they departed, he sat in his office, lost in thought. He recalled the look Liu Yongqiang had given him when he left. Before he could make sense of it all, another incident occurred. That afternoon, Engineer Li received a phone call. After hanging up, he appeared somewhat unsettled. What is the matter? Su Sun asked. Li hesitated, then said, Liu Yongqiang has invited me to dinner tonight. Su Sun fixed his gaze upon him. Li quickly added, Boss Su, I want to go. I can't be bothered with that kind of person. Su Sun pondered for a moment before replying, You should go. Let us see what he has to say. That evening, Li attended the dinner. At the table, Liu Yongqiang was exceedingly cordial, toasting and serving dishes. After a few rounds of drinks, he set down his chopsticks and looked at Li. Old Li, he began, How long have you been working for Su Sun? Li replied, Since the factory opened. Over a decade. Liu Yongqiang nodded, leaning forward. Old Li, your skills are renowned in our area. How much does Su Sun pay you? Li was momentarily taken aback and remained silent. Liu Yongqiang chuckled, producing a card from his bag and sliding it across the table to Li. I'll offer you double. Come work for me. Li glanced at the card, then raised his head to meet Liu Yongqiang's gaze. Boss Liu, he spoke softly yet clearly, though I may lack wealth. I know what conscience is. He pushed the card back, stood up, and stated, Thank you for the meal. I am full. With that, he turned and left. Liu Yongqiang sat there, his face shifting from pale to flushed. The next morning, Li recounted the entire episode to Su Sun. After listening, Su Sun remained silent for a considerable time. He gazed at Li's weathered face, feeling a warmth in his eyes. Old Li, he finally spoke, his voice slightly hoarse. Thank you. Li waved his hand dismissively. What is there to thank? Boss Su, I don't possess great talents, but I can make motors. You have given me this platform, allowing me to create things I never dared to dream of. I should be the one thanking you. Su Sun remained silent, standing up to place a reassuring hand on Li's shoulder. From today onward, your salary will be doubled, he declared, and I will grant you 3% equity in the company. As the factory flourishes, we shall all prosper together. Li was taken aback. Boss Su, this. Su Sun raised his hand to silence him. It's settled. That evening, Su Sun returned home and shared the news with his son. After listening, Suja remained quiet, lowering his head in thought. Eventually, he looked up at his father. Dad, we need to be cautious. Such people are capable of anything. Su Sun nodded, I understand. Tomorrow, I will tighten management. No one unauthorized shall enter, and no inappropriate discussions will take place. Suja regarded him, then suddenly asked, Dad, what about those who didn't agree, like Old Li? What about the others? Su Sun was momentarily taken aback. Suja continued, if Liu Yongqiang could entice Old Li, he can also lure others. If he couldn't succeed this time, what about next time? Or the time after that? Su Sun fell silent for a few seconds, then reached out to ruffle his son's hair. Dad understands. Outside the window, the moonlight streamed in. Suja lay in his small bed, wide awake, recalling how his father's factory had collapsed in a previous life. It wasn't due to a lack of technology or orders, but rather betrayal from behind. He resolved never to allow such a thing to happen again in this life. He turned over, gazing out the window, where the moon shone brightly. Suddenly, he remembered the computational power within the system. He needed just a little more to unlock the next technology. He would need to devise a plan. Chapter 16. A failed scheme. Lu Yongqiang, frustrated by his inability to sway Engineer Li, seethed with determination. He spent an entire afternoon in his office, smoking a pack of cigarettes, finally extinguishing the last one with a vengeance. Fine, he gritted his teeth. If I can't win over Li Guizhen, I can still recruit a few ordinary workers. He summoned his subordinates, instructing them, investigate the workers at Su Sun's factory. Find out who is facing hardships, who is short on cash, and who harbors grievances. Compile a detailed list. 3 days later, a list was presented to him. He scrutinized each name, ultimately circling 2. These 2, he declared. Go negotiate with them. The 2 workers, Old Zheng and Old Wu, were long-standing employees of Su Sun's factory. Their families were of modest means, with children currently in school, making them particularly vulnerable financially. Lu Yongqiang's agents approached them with a straightforward offer: double their salary to join Yongqiang's team. Old Zheng hesitated, and Old Wu did as well. Doubling their wages would mean several thousand extra each month. After 3 days of deliberation, they ultimately decided to visit Su Sun's office. Boss Su. Old Zheng stood there, wringing his hands and avoiding eye contact. Yongqiang wants me to come over. Su Sun was taken aback, observing the guilt etched on Old Zheng's face, then glancing at Old Wu, feeling a pang in his heart. However, he did not lose his temper. After a moment of silence, he nodded. Very well. If you have made up your minds, then go. Old Zheng looked up, his eyes reddening. Boss Su, I'm sorry. Su Sun waved his hand. No need for apologies. People aspire to rise. I understand. Old Wu stood silently beside him, unable to utter a word. They left, and Su Sun remained seated in his office, motionless for a long time. That evening, he shared the incident with his son. 2 have left, he said, a hint of fatigue in his voice. Old Zheng and Old Wu. Suja, who had been leaning over his drawing on the table, looked up. Oh. Su Sun was taken aback. Oh. Just oh? Suja blinked. Dad, are you worried? Su Sun reflected for a moment, admitting, a bit. They have been with us for quite some time, and losing them makes things tight. Suja nodded, then returned to his drawing. Su Sun looked at him, bewildered. Son, he tentatively called. Suja, without lifting his head, replied, Dad, let them go. Su Sun was stunned. Suja raised his head, his eyes sparkling. The core technology is in our hands. What they take is merely superficial. They cannot produce anything of quality. Su Sun gazed at him, wanting to say something but swallowing his words. He suddenly recalled that his son had never been wrong about this. Old Zheng and Old Wu arrived at Yongqiang Electric Motors, where Lu Yongqiang personally welcomed them. Welcome, welcome, he smiled, gesturing for tea to be poured. You'll be well taken care of here. Old Zheng and Old Wu exchanged glances, feeling a weight lift from their hearts. However, Lu Yongqiang's next words left them stunned. You learned that motor technology from Su Sun. I want you to replicate it for me, Lu Yongqiang instructed. The blueprints, processes, and materials must be exact. Old Zheng opened his mouth. General Manager Lu, that technology, we only know how to execute it, not why it works. The blueprints were drawn by General Su himself, and we have never seen them. Lu Yongqiang's smile faltered momentarily. Never seen them? You've worked there for so long and never laid eyes on the blueprints? Old Zheng nodded, replying earnestly, only Engineer Li has access to General Su's blueprints. We simply followed the samples provided by Engineer Li. Lu Yongqiang fell silent for a few seconds before waving his hand dismissively. Fine, then replicate it based on the samples. After working there for so long, you must know how to do it, right? Old Zheng and Old Wu nodded in agreement. A month later, the first batch of replicas from Yongqiang Electric Motors was completed. Lu Yongqiang stood in the workshop, observing the freshly assembled motors with a smile. Let us test them, he exclaimed excitedly. The technician connected the motors to the power supply, but his expression quickly soured. General Manager Lu, these motors. The current is higher than that of ordinary motors, and the noise is unbearable. They are completely unusable. Lu Yongqiang's smile vanished. Test them again, he barked. After a second test, the results remained unchanged. He turned to Old Zheng and Old Wu, his gaze lethal. Is this the craftsmanship you learned from Su Sun? Old Zheng took a step back in fear. General Manager Lu, we truly only know how to follow instructions. We don't understand the underlying principles. What was produced at Su Sun's place was simply superior to this. Liu Yongqiang took a deep breath, suppressing his anger. Then make the necessary modifications until they work. A week later, after 3 failed attempts to correct the issues, the first batch of products was sent out. Within 3 days, the phones were flooded with return requests. General Manager, what kind of motors are these? They consume even more electricity than my originals. And the noise is like that of a tractor. We demand a refund. We will never purchase from Yongqiang again. Liu Yongqiang hung up the phone, angrily smashing his teacup against the floor. Just as he was at his wit's end, another piece of news arrived. General Manager, there are rumors circulating outside that we copied the technology from Yuanheng Motors. Liu Yongqiang shot to his feet. Who said that? His subordinate shrank back. I don't know. It just spread suddenly. Many clients who were considering representing us are now hesitating. Liu Yongqiang collapsed back into his chair, realizing he had shot himself in the foot. Su Sun, I will not let this go. A month later, Old Zheng and Old Wu found themselves once again before Su Sun, this time with their heads bowed even lower. General Su. Old Zheng's voice trembled. We want to return. Su Sun regarded them. Both appeared gaunt, their eye sockets sunken, faces etched with fatigue and shame. He remained silent for a few seconds before shaking his head. Old Zheng, Old Wu, he said, his voice low yet clear, one must have principles. Changing jobs is permissible, but betraying your former employer is not. Old Zheng lifted his head, his eyes reddening. General Su, we did not betray anyone. We truly did not understand the technology. Su Sun looked at him and nodded. I understand, but you chose to leave. Once you depart, do not return. Old Wu stood nearby, tears streaming down his cheeks. They lingered for a long moment before ultimately turning to leave. Su Sun stood at the door, watching their silhouettes fade away. He recalled his son's words. Core technology must be held in one's hands. What they took was merely the surface. Now he believed it. That evening, he shared the events with his son. After listening, Suja nodded but remained silent. Su Sun scrutinized him and suddenly asked, You were the one who spread that rumor, weren't you? Suja blinked innocently. What rumor? Su Sun chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. All right, I won T Pry. Chapter 17. Has the process been completed? Su Sun sat in his office, surrounded by a pile of ledgers. He had been calculating all morning, running through the numbers multiple times. The pen tip tapped against the paper, producing small black dots. Engineer Li entered, observing Su Sun's demeanor, and inquired, General Su, have you reached a conclusion? Su Sun looked up, his eyes slightly red but a smile gradually forming. Oldly, he began, his voice somewhat airy. With a principal amount of 3.8 million, we are just 800,000 short of full repayment. Engineer Li paused momentarily before slamming his palm on the table. Then pay it back. Su Sun regarded the ledger in silence for a few seconds. He closed it firmly and rose. I will repay it today. As he spoke, he pressed his hand against the ledger, knuckles turning white. Engineer Li watched him, saying nothing, only nodding in agreement. Su Sun exited his office and found his son in the workshop. Suja was crouched in a corner, drawing patterns on the ground with a stick. Upon hearing footsteps, he looked up. Dad. Su Sun squatted down, resting his hands on his knees, and gazed at him. Son, come with me to the bank. Suja blinked. To repay the money? Su Sun nodded affirmatively. Suja stood up, brushed off the dust from his pants, and took his father's hand. The bank was not crowded. Su Sun and his son entered, standing in line at the counter, with 2 people ahead of them. Su Sun held his son's hand with one hand while the other rested in his pocket, feeling the passbook. When it was their turn, Su Sun approached the counter, handing over the passbook. Repaying a loan, principal amount 800,000. The teller, a young woman, took the passbook and typed a few commands on the computer. She looked up at Su Sun, then back at the screen. Rising, she called out, Manager Liu, could you come over for a moment? Su Sun was taken aback. A middle-aged man emerged from the back, wearing glasses and a white shirt. Manager Liu, from the credit department. A year ago, Su Sun had visited this very place, pleading for a few days' grace. Manager Liu, then at this desk, had not even looked up, simply stating that they would follow procedure, and if repayment was not made, the assets would be auctioned off. Now, Manager Liu approached, glancing at Su Sun, momentarily stunned. Then a broad smile spread across his face as he hurried over. Boss Su, it's been a while. I've heard your factory is flourishing. Su Sun stared at the outstretched hand, but did not shake it. Manager Liu's hand hung awkwardly in the air, his smile faltering. Only then did Su Sun slowly extend his hand to shake briefly before letting go. Manager Lu retracted his hand, rubbing it together, and turned to the teller. I will handle Boss Su's matter. The teller nodded and stepped aside. Manager Lu sat down at the computer, typing swiftly. Boss Su, are you planning to repay this 800,000 in one go? Su Sun nodded. Manager Lu glanced at the screen and then at Su Sun, his smile broadening. Boss Su, you are truly remarkable. In just 1 year, you've repaid the entire principal of 3.8 million, which is quite rare in our industry. He continued to process the paperwork with deft movements. Su Sun stood there, observing him. Once the paperwork was completed, Manager Lu stood and handed over the receipt. Boss Su, your loan has been fully settled. If you need anything in the future, feel free to reach out. Whether it's loans, investments, anything at all. Su Sun took the receipt and glanced down. Then he raised his gaze to meet Manager Lu's. Manager Lu, he began slowly. A year ago when I came here, you said to follow procedure. And if I couldn't repay, my assets would be auctioned. Now that I have repaid everything, has the procedure been completed? Manager Lu's smile faltered. Well, Boss Su, at that time, it was also according to the regulations. Su Sun interrupted him. I know. I'm just asking, have you finished? Manager Lu opened his mouth, uncertain of what to say. Su Sun folded the receipt and tucked it into his pocket. As long as it's done, thank you, Manager Lu. He took his son's hand and turned to leave. Upon reaching the door, he suddenly paused and glanced back. Manager Lu remained standing there. The smile long gone from his face, his lips pressed together, his complexion alternating between pale and flushed. Su Sun said nothing further and pushed the door open, stepping outside. Suja stumbled along, holding his father's hand. He looked up at Su Sun, who wore a neutral expression, with only the corners of his mouth slightly uplifted. Dad. Suja suddenly spoke. You were pretty cool just now. Su Sun was momentarily taken aback, lowering his gaze to meet his son's. Suja looked up with bright eyes, grinning like a little fox. Su Sun chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. All right, stop being cheeky. Let's go eat. Suja nodded and followed his father. After walking a short distance, he suddenly asked, Dad, what do you think Manager Lu is thinking right now? Su Sun pondered for a moment. Perhaps he's cursing me. Suja shook his head. I think he's wondering how someone can turn their fortunes around in just a year. Su Sun looked down at him. How do you know? Suja blinked, just a guess. Su Sun smiled and fell silent. That evening, Su Sun took Suja to the finest restaurant in town, a well-established local eatery with 3 stories and a large red lantern hanging at the entrance. Su Sun pushed the door open and entered. Table for 2, he told the waiter, who guided them to a window seat. Su Sun picked up the menu and scanned it. As he ordered, his finger traced down the list. Braised pork, sweet and sour ribs, steamed base, oil-braised prawns, and a portion of candied sweet potatoes. The waiter noted the order and looked up. Sir, with so much food, will you two be able to finish it? Su Sun chuckled. We will manage. The dishes arrived, filling the table. Su Sun picked up his chopsticks and served his son a piece of braised pork, urging, eat. He then offered a rib. Have more. Suja lowered his head to eat. After a few bites, he raised his gaze. His father was watching him, his bowl of rice untouched. Dad, why aren't you eating? Su Sun smiled. Watching you eat makes me happy. Suja stared at him and suddenly asked, Then why did you watch for so long before? I didn't lose any meat then. Su Sun was taken aback, then burst into laughter, shaking his shoulders. You little rascal. Can't you let your father feel touched for once? Suja picked up a piece of braised pork and held it to his father's mouth. Once you're touched, eat. Su Sun opened his mouth and caught it, chewing as his eyes became misty. He said nothing, merely reached out to tousle his son's hair. Ding. Su Sun's emotional response. 200 computation points. Suja silently glanced at the system interface in his mind. After their meal, night had fallen. Su Sun held his son's hand and strolled slowly home. The streets were bustling with festive cheer, adorned with red lanterns, and the sound of firecrackers popping nearby. As they walked partway, they passed a supermarket. Suja glanced up. It was his uncle's supermarket, with the old sign still hanging at the entrance, brightly lit. His uncle stood at the door, broom in hand, sweeping up the remnants of firecrackers. He looked up and spotted Su Sun and his son. He paused momentarily. Then a broad smile spread across his face as he hurried over. Ah, Su Sun, he exclaimed, his voice several octaves higher than usual. Long time no see. I heard you've struck it rich. Come in, come in. He moved closer, reaching out to grasp Su Sun's arm. Su Sun stepped back. The uncle's hand hovered in the air. He rubbed his hands together, his smile faltering. It was my fault before. After all, we're relatives. Su Sun regarded him, observing the forced smile and the restless eyes. No need, Su Sun replied. We're heading home. He continued walking with his son. The uncle stood in place, unable to follow. As they walked further, Suja turned back to look. His uncle remained there, illuminated by the streetlight, casting a long shadow. He turned back to his father. Dad, do you hate him? Su Sun did not answer immediately. He held his son's hand and walked a while before speaking. I don't hate him. Suja looked up at him. Su Sun glanced down and smiled. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have realized that true success comes from my own efforts. Suja was taken aback, observing his father's expression, the genuine smile devoid of hatred or arrogance. It was simply a smile. He suddenly smiled as well. So, should you thank him? Su Sun was amused by his son, playfully patting the back of his head. Thank him? Let's go home. Suja covered his head, chuckling softly. Chapter 18. Flattery will get you nowhere on Monday morning. Su Sun took Suja to kindergarten. As they approached the entrance, Suja spotted a black sedan parked by the roadside, with two figures standing beside it, Mr. Wang and his son Wang Hao. Wang Hao wore a new shirt emblazoned with Ultraman, kicking small stones on the ground. Mr. Wang, dressed in a suit, held a cigarette and boasted to a nearby parent. My factory has expanded another production line this year. Our monthly output is this number, he said, holding up 5 fingers. The other parent nodded in agreement. Mr. Wang is impressive indeed. Su Sun walked over with his son. Mr. Wang turned and immediately recognized them, momentarily stunned before his face broke into a wide smile. He tossed his cigarette to the ground and stamped it out, briskly approaching with the sound of his polished shoes echoing on the pavement. Su Zong, he called from a distance, his voice several octaves higher than before. What a coincidence. I was just thinking of looking for you. Su Sun halted, watching him approach. Mr. Wang reached Su Sun and grasped his hand, shaking it vigorously, his smile nearly spilling over. Su Zong, long time no see. I heard your factory is now producing electric vehicle motors? That order from Shinri is yours, right? Su Sun withdrew his hand, observing him. Mr. Wang, you're quite well informed. Mr. Wang rubbed his hands together, leaning in slightly. Of course, local businesses should support one another. You see, my factory also produces components, motor casings, end caps, and such. The quality is absolutely guaranteed. Shall we collaborate? Su Sun remained silent, merely watching him. Mr. Wang felt uneasy under Su Sun's gaze, but continued to smile. The price is negotiable. If you need anything, just say the word. Wang Hao stood beside them, having stopped kicking stones, staring blankly at his father. What was his father usually like at home? Sitting on the couch, legs crossed, watching television, with the remote always in his hand. If his mother brought tea or water too slowly, he could grumble for half an hour. His father always spoke as if he were the one in charge. When had he ever seen him like this? Bent over, rubbing his hands together, a smile plastered on his face as if he were a subordinate awaiting orders. Wang Hao lowered his head, wishing he could find a hole to hide in. Suja peeked out from behind his father, catching a glimpse of Wang Hao's flushed face. Red as a monkey's backside, hands gripping his shirt tightly. He smirked slightly before retreating behind his father again. Su Sun gazed at Mr. Wang and spoke slowly. Mr. Wang, let us discuss the collaboration at a later time. For now, I must escort my child inside. Mr. Wang nodded repeatedly. Of course, Mr. Su. Please attend to your matters. I shall treat you to dinner soon, definitely. Su Sun took his son by the hand and walked toward the kindergarten. After taking a few steps, Suja suddenly turned his head to glance back. Mr. Wang remained in place, dabbing his forehead with a handkerchief. Wang Hao stood beside him, his head bowed, lost in thought. Suja turned back and continued walking with his father. Dad, he whispered. Wang Hao's father was scared and is sweating by you. Su Sun paused for a moment, then chuckled. I possess no such ability. Please refrain from exaggerating my merits. Though he feigned modesty, he felt a surge of pride within. This was the transformation that his status had brought him. He need not deliberately showcase his capabilities, as those beneath him would instinctively feel anxious in his presence. All these changes were gifts from his son. In the classroom, the teacher encouraged the children to share their weekend experiences. One by one, the children raised their hands. Some mentioned visiting their grandparents, others spoke of playing in the park, and some mentioned acquiring new toys. When it was Wang Hao's turn, he stood up, opened his mouth. But words eluded him for a long moment. The teacher looked at him. Wang Hao, where did you go for fun over the weekend? Wang Hao lowered his head. His face flushed. He recalled the weekend when his father had been irritable at home. Orders were snatched away, business was tough, and his father spent each day yelling at people over the phone. During mealtime, his mother had uttered a few extra words, prompting his father to smash the bowl. What experiences could he share? He stammered, unable to articulate a single word. The teacher waited for a few seconds, and seeing that he truly could not speak, she had no choice but to let him sit down. When Wang Hao returned to his seat, he buried his head low. Next was Su Zhe. He stood up and walked to the front. The teacher smiled at him. Su Zhe, did you have any fun over the weekend? Su Zhe nodded and began to speak in a babyish voice. My dad took me out for a grand meal. The other children looked at him, their interest piqued. Braised pork, sweet and sour ribs, steamed base, oil-braised shrimp, and candied sweet potatoes. Some children swallowed hard. Su Zhe continued, my dad also repaid the bank loan. He paused, surveying the other children. My dad says one must strive to succeed. After saying this, he returned to his seat. The classroom fell silent for a second, then erupted into applause. The children clapped, unsure of the reason, but they joined in with the others. Chapter 19. The prototype of the RD department. Orders were pouring in. First was the annual contract for 60,000 units from Shinri, followed by additional orders from several smaller factories, and then former clients from the parts market who had previously declined his offers began calling daily to inquire if they could still place orders. The workshop buzzed with activity from dawn till dusk. The workforce expanded from 20 to 30, and then to 40. Engineer Li was busier than ever. One day, Su Sun visited the workshop and found Engineer Li surrounded by 3 people. Engineer Li, is this winding parameter correct? Engineer Li, my machine keeps tripping. Could you take a look? Engineer Li, the new batch of silicon steel sheets seems to have some issues. After answering one query, he was immediately confronted with another, beads of sweat dotting his forehead, his shirt soaked through. Upon spotting Su Sun, he forced a smile. Mr. Su, I'm becoming an octopus here. Su Sun stood by, observing silently. That evening, at home, Su Sun sat at the edge of the bed, watching his son. Su Zhe was bent over the desk, drawing, the pencil moving across the paper. Son, Su Sun began. Su Zhe did not look up. Su Sun pondered for a moment, organizing his thoughts. Engineer Li cannot manage alone. I am considering hiring a few university graduates to focus on RD. The pencil in Su Zhe's hand paused. He raised his head, his eyes brightening, a smile slowly forming on his lips. Dad, you finally get it. Su Sun was taken aback by his words, reaching out to pat his head. Su Zhe instinctively ducked, chuckling softly. Su Sun's hand hovered in the air, and he too smiled. You little rascal. Tell me, what kind of people should we recruit? Su Zhe tilted his head thoughtfully. Fresh graduates are best. They are passionate, eager to learn, and haven't been misled by other companies yet. Su Sun nodded, committing this to memory. The following day, Su Sun visited a job fair. The venue was bustling with crowds, fresh graduates holding signs everywhere. He squeezed through the throng for an entire morning, accumulating a hefty stack of resumes. Finding a corner, he squatted down and began reviewing them one by one. After an hour, he shortlisted 2 candidates. One was named Zhang Ming, an electrical engineering graduate from this year. His resume noted that he hailed from a rural background, was hardworking, and compliant. The other was Wang Lei, a graduate in automation, also from this year, whose resume highlighted strong practical skills and a willingness to start from the ground up. Holding the 2 resumes, Su Sun stood up and scanned the crowd. He first located Zhang Ming, who was short and thin, standing in front of a booth, attempting to submit his resume. The person at the booth glanced at it, shook their head, and pushed it back. Zhang Ming was momentarily taken aback, accepting his resume back and stepping back. He turned around and found Su Sun standing before him. Zhang Ming. Su Sun inquired. Zhang Ming nodded, somewhat shy. Yes, you are. Su Sun waved the resume. I reviewed your resume. You studied electrical engineering? Zhang Ming nodded, his eyes lighting up. Yes, I just graduated this year. Su Sun regarded him. I have a small factory that manufactures electric motors. We are in need of someone for our D. Would you be interested? Zhang Ming hesitated, scrutinizing Su Sun. He was dressed ordinarily and spoke plainly, unlike the polished recruiters from large corporations. After a moment of contemplation, he asked, Mr. Su, may I inquire what type of motors our factory primarily produces? Su Sun replied, currently, we mainly produce fan motors. We have recently launched a brushless DC model for electric vehicles. Zhang Ming's eyes brightened again at the mention of brushless DC. He had learned about it at school and recognized its value. Mr. Su, I'm in. Su Sun nodded, leading him aside. Hold on, there is one more. When he found Wang Lei, he was squatting in a corner, munching on a steamed bun. Su Sun approached and stood before him. Wang Lei looked up, still chewing, and stared at him in surprise. Wang Lei? Su Sun asked. Wang Lei swallowed the bun and stood up, hastily hiding the remaining bun behind him. You are. Su Sun waved the resume. I reviewed your resume. You studied automation? Wang Lei nodded. Su Sun asked, I have a small factory that manufactures electric motors. We need someone for control systems. Would you be interested? Wang Lei hesitated, not responding immediately. He scrutinized Su Sun and then asked, Mr. Su, where is your factory located? Su Sun replied, in the eastern part of the city, a bit remote. Wang Lei pondered, then asked, what will I be doing there? Su Sun explained, you will first learn from the senior technician. Once you've mastered it, you can take over. We have the blueprints and quality materials. It's up to you to absorb it all. Wang Lei regarded him in silence for a few seconds. Then, he stuffed the remaining half of the bun into his mouth, cheeks bulging, and declared, let's go. The three of them exited the job fair. Su Sun stood by the roadside, hailing a taxi. Zhang Ming and Wang Lei followed him into the vehicle. As the taxi pulled away, heading east, Zhang Ming sat in the back seat, gazing out the window. Initially, he could see tall buildings, but soon the structures grew shorter and older, eventually turning into a narrow alley lined with old factories. He turned to glance at Wang Lei, who was also observing him. Zhang Ming opened his mouth, forming the words silently. This place? Wang Lei slightly shook his head, signaling, let us wait and see. The taxi came to a halt in front of a factory gate. The three of them disembarked. Zhang Ming stood at the entrance, peering inside. The yard was small, with several rows of low buildings, the paint on the walls peeling. Wooden crates were stacked at the entrance, covered in dust. The rumble of machinery echoed from within the workshop. He turned to Wang Lei and whispered, is this reliable? Wang Lei remained silent, merely pursing his lips. Su Sun, walking ahead, glanced back at them. Come in, he urged. The two followed him inside, crossing the courtyard and entering the workshop. The lighting in the workshop was somewhat dim, with several fluorescent lamps hanging overhead, some flickering while others remained dark. The floor was cluttered with copper wires and silicon steel sheets, necessitating careful navigation to avoid stepping on anything. The machinery appeared worn, with paint chipped off and surfaces rusted. A few workers squatted on the ground, winding wires, their hands covered in grease. Zhang Ming's heart sank as he exchanged a worried glance with Wang Lei, both questioning the research and development potential of this place. Zhang Ming opened his mouth, intending to voice his concerns, when a man in his 50s emerged from within, his hands grimy and clad in a yellowed undershirt. Mr. Su, he called out. Su Sun nodded in acknowledgement. Oldly, these two are new university students. They will learn from you. Engineer Li appraised them silently, washing his hands in a nearby bucket before approaching a workbench. He retrieved a stack of blueprints and spread them out. Come take a look, he beckoned to the two. Zhang Ming and Wang Lei leaned in closer. The blueprint depicted a motor design on A3 paper, filled with intricate lines and annotations. Stator, rotor, winding, and magnetic steel were clearly labeled. Zhang Ming lowered his gaze, studying it intently. His eyes widened as he realized, is this a brushless DC motor? Engineer Li nodded, a smile creeping onto his lips. Wang Lei leaned over, scrutinizing the blueprint for a long moment before turning to Su Sun. Mr. Su, is this design developed in our factory? Su Sun, caught under the gaze of the two young men, felt his face flush. He was not the designer, but he couldn't admit that. Instead, he simply smiled sheepishly and nodded. Zhang Ming and Wang Lei exchanged glances. Zhang Ming took a deep breath, looking once more at the blueprint. The parameters, the markings, the structures he had only encountered in textbooks were now laid out before him. He recalled his earlier skepticism in the car with Wang Lei, thinking this place was unreliable. His face felt warm. He looked up at Su Sun, his voice a bit strained. Mr. Su, I want to stay. Wang Lei nodded in agreement. Me too. Engineer Li, overhearing their conversation, chuckled. Well, you have an eye for this. This motor is in high demand from Shinri, with an order of 60,000 units a year. Zhang Ming was taken aback. 60,000 units. He glanced at Engineer Li, then at Su Sun, finally returning his gaze to the blueprint. Suddenly, the shabby workshop didn't seem so dilapidated after all. That evening at home, Su Sun sat on the edge of his bed, his son lying beside him. Dad, Suja began, are those two university students reliable? Su Sun pondered briefly. They are honest kids. Let's observe them for a bit. Suja nodded. falling silent as he turned to gaze out the window. The moonlight streamed in, illuminating his face. He recalled the computational power within the system and the technology yet to be unlocked, the intelligent motor control chip. Once those two university students fully integrated into the team, he could gradually unlock it. A smile crept onto his face. Dad, he suddenly spoke up. Do you think they will go off and start their own thing later? Susun paused and then laughed. If they do, so be it. Talented individuals are hard to retain. If I can assist them in any way, I shall. Suja turned to look at him. In the moonlight, his father's face shone with a smile, his eyes bright. He too smiled, thinking how much his father had changed. This was the father he hoped to see, one who would bring forth more leading-edge technology, alleviating any worries about his father's direction. Chapter 20. Preparations for the Parent-Child Sports Day. The kindergarten was set to host a Parent-Child Sports Day. On the afternoon the notice was issued. Su-sun went to pick up his son, and the teacher specifically called him aside. Mr. Su, next Saturday is the Parent-Child Sports Day, and you must spare some time to participate, the teacher said with a smile. The event is a parent-child tug-of-war, which requires cooperation between parents and children. It's quite interesting. Su-sun nodded, accepting the notice. On the way home, Suja held his hand and asked, Dad, are you going? Su-sun looked down at him. Of course. Why wouldn't he? Suja blinked. Can you run? Su-sun was caught off guard. After a moment of reflection, he honestly replied, Not really. Suja regarded him silently. Su-sun added, But as long as we don't come in last, it's fine. It's all about participation, right? Suja rolled his eyes. Dad, he said, is that all you aspire to? Su-sun was momentarily taken aback, then reached out to pat his head. Suja quickly ducked away, chuckling. You little rascal, Su-sun teased, but he didn't pursue him. After taking a few steps, Suja suddenly said, Dad, we can win with our brains. Su-sun looked down at him. With our brains? Suja nodded. You can buy some wooden boards and a few wheels. Su-sun was puzzled. What do we need those for? Suja grinned mysteriously. To make a small cart. On the weekend, the sun shone brightly, warming the courtyard. Su-sun squatted down, surrounded by several wooden boards, for small wheels, a pile of screws, and tools. He scratched his head, looking at his son. Son, how do we make this? Suja stood beside him, holding a stick and sketching a rough diagram in the dirt. Dad, look, he said, pointing to the lines he drew. This is the base, this is the axle, and this is the seat. Su-sun leaned in, observing for a long time, but still feeling somewhat befuddled. And then, Suja sighed dramatically, his expression reminiscent of a little adult. Dad, you saw the wood. I'll tell you how to saw it. Su-sun picked up the saw and began working. A little to the left, yes, now over here. Suja stood beside him, directing with gestures. After sawing one piece, he looked up at his son, then continued to saw another. Wang Lei emerged from the workshop and, seeing the father and son busy in the courtyard, approached. Mr. Su, what are you up to? Su-sun wiped the sweat from his brow and replied, making a little cart for the kindergarten sports day. Wang Lei squatted down, examining the wooden boards and wheels, as well as Suja's rough sketch. This design. He pointed at the drawing. The axle goes here? Suja nodded. Wang Lei pondered for a moment. Will this be stable under load? Suja shook his head. No, the center of gravity is in the middle. Wang Lei regarded him thoughtfully, glanced at the blueprint again, and chose not to comment further. As he stood to leave, he turned back for another look at the child earnestly drawing in the dirt with his stick. He suddenly felt that the people and affairs in this factory were rather peculiar. In the afternoon, the cart frame was completed. Su-sun stood up, stretching his back as he gazed at the rudimentary cart on the ground, filled with skepticism. Son, will this actually run? Suja squatted down, checking the wheels before looking up. Dad, we just need one last step. He dashed into the workshop and returned with a small object in hand. A miniature motor. Smaller than a palm, yet surprisingly heavy. Su-sun was taken aback. Where did this come from? Suja blinked innocently. It was left over from the samples Grandpa Lee made last time. I saved it. He handed the motor to his father. Dad, install it. Su-sun accepted the motor. Squatting down once more to inspect the little cart, then the motor. He fixed the motor onto the axle, connected the wires, and installed a small switch. Once finished, he stood up and clapped his hands. Shall we give it a try? Suja nodded eagerly. Su-sun flipped the switch on the small cart. The small car jolted forward abruptly, skidding a couple of meters before coming to a steady halt. Su-sun was momentarily taken aback. He approached, lifted the car, and examined the axle. The tiny motor was whirring away happily. He placed the car back on the ground and flipped the switch again. The car darted forward once more. gliding even more smoothly than before. Su Sun's eyes sparkled as he gazed at the little vehicle. Son, he turned to Suja, this car runs so well. Suja crouched down beside the car, nudging the wheels with his finger. The motor we installed, though small, packs quite a punch. He looked up at his father. Do you think this car can win? Su Sun paused for a moment, contemplating the question. Can this compete? Are we allowed to use this in the sports event? Suja chuckled, a hint of mischief in his smile. Dad, the competition is a parent-child rally. We can bring our own vehicle, and it doesn't say we can't use a motor, does it? Su Sun scrutinized his son's face, taking in his smile. After a brief moment of astonishment, he burst into laughter. Son, he slapped his thigh with delight. You're quite the clever one. He squatted down and lifted Suja, spinning him around. You came up with this idea? Suja cradled in his father's arms. Let out a chuckle. Just tell me if we can win. Su Sun set him down, glancing at the little car, then back at his son. We will win, he declared with certainty. Ding. Su Sun's pride. 100 computational power. That evening, Su Sun sat by the bed, gazing at the little car, admiring it more and more. Son, he suddenly spoke up. Suja, lying on the bed, lifted his head at the sound of his father's voice. Su Sun pointed at the car. Do you think this thing could sell? Would anyone buy it? Suja paused, then laughed. Dad, you're quick on the uptake. Su Sun chuckled in return. I learned from you. After a moment of thought, Suja replied, let us win the race first. Then, everyone will see, and naturally, they'll ask. Su Sun nodded, casting one last glance at the car. All right, I'll follow your lead. Chapter 21. The domination of technology on the day of the parent-child sports event. The sun shone brilliantly. The kindergarten playground was bustling with people, parents, and children chattering away, creating an atmosphere akin to a bustling marketplace. As Su Sun pushed the homemade little car into the playground, it attracted numerous curious gazes. Indeed, the car was not particularly attractive. Its body was made of wooden planks. The wheels assembled from various parts, and it bore no paint, exposing the wood's natural hue. In comparison to the colorful, professional children's cars nearby, it resembled an ugly duckling. Some people laughed, covering their mouths. What kind of car is that? Did you make it yourself? A wooden cart? Can it even run? It appeared rather rudimentary. Likely just a token entry. Su Sun felt a twinge of embarrassment at their remarks and glanced down at his son. Suja sat calmly in the vehicle, legs crossed, exuding an air of composure. Dad, don't mind them. Su Sun nodded and pushed the cart toward the competition area. Wang Hao and his father were already there. Mr. Wang was pushing a professional-grade red children's racing car, boasting a streamlined body and shock-absorbing wheels, surrounded by a circle of admiring parents. Mr. Wang, where did you buy this car? It's stunning. Must have cost a pretty penny? Mr. Wang's eyes crinkled with delight as he replied, over 3,000. It's nothing. As long as the child is happy. Wang Hao stood nearby, his nose in the air, his chin almost touching the sky. When he saw Su Sun and his son approaching with the wooden car, he paused for a moment before bursting into laughter. Suja, you call that a car? Mine cost over 3,000. Suja glanced at him, unfazed. Oh. Wang Hao was momentarily speechless, his laughter faltering as the other children joined in, pointing and giggling at the wooden cart. Su Sun furrowed his brow, about to say something when Suja shot him a glance, subtly shaking his head. Su Sun held back his words as the competition was about to begin. The teacher, holding a megaphone, announced, parents participating in the parent-child rally. Please gather at the starting line. Su Sun pushed the cart to the starting line, positioning himself between Wang Hao and other parent-child pairs. Mr. Wang turned to Su Sun with a smile. Mr. Su, did you make this car yourself? It looks quite unique. Su Sun chuckled sheepishly. Just something I tinkered with for my child to play with. Mr. Wang laughed heartily, but said no more. Wang Hao chimed in, Dad, they're definitely going to come in last. Mr. Wang simply smiled and patted his son's head. Suja sat in the cart, his hand resting on an inconspicuous little box containing a switch. A smirk played on his lips. The whistle blew. The race commenced. Parents pushed their carts forward. Mr. Wang surged ahead, propelling the red racing car at full speed. He was indeed fast, his long legs covering ground swiftly, and he turned back for a moment, unable to conceal his pride. Wang Hao, sitting in the car, shouted back, Hurry up. Can't catch up, can you? The other parents lagged behind, some panting heavily, while others struggled to keep their carts steady. Su Sun ran at a moderate pace, not rushing, simply aiming to finish steadily. In the first 50 meters, Wang Hao and his father took the lead. Mr. Wang glanced back, his smirk widening. At that moment, Suja's hand moved. He pressed the small switch. A faint hum filled the air, almost inaudible. Yet, Su soon felt it. The little cart suddenly felt lighter, not merely lighter, but propelled forward by an unseen force. He paused, looking down at his son, who winked at him. Understanding dawned on Su's son, and he smiled. He began to accelerate. The cart surged forward like a bullet. As they rounded the bend, the wheels gripped the ground firmly, showing no signs of wobbling. On the straightaway, their speed increased dramatically. Mr. Wong, mid-sprint, suddenly sensed something whizzing past him. He turned to see the wooden cart darting by. He was momentarily stunned. "Dad, they're catching up," Wang Hao exclaimed. "Mr." Wang sprinted with all his might, but his legs could not outpace the motor. The little cart pulled further ahead. In the end, Su Sun and his son crossed the finish line first. Silence enveloped the crowd for a brief moment before it erupted into chaos. What just happened? How did that car suddenly become so fast? Does it have a motor? Mr. Wong reached the finish line, panting heavily. His expression a mix of disbelief and embarrassment, his face flushing a myriad of colors. Wang Hao sat in the cart, head hung low, silent. Parents gathered around, buzzing with questions about the wooden cart. "Mr. Su, where did you get this car? Did you add something to it? How did it go so fast all of a sudden?" Su Sun chuckled amiably, scratching his head. "I made it myself, just for my child to play with." Mr. Wong stood nearby, feeling the heat of embarrassment on his face as he recalled his earlier comments and the price of his professional racing car, now rendered a mere joke. He opened his mouth to speak, but swallowed his words instead. Wang Hao, blushing fiercely, wished he could disappear into the ground, recalling his earlier taunt about the car. On the way home, Su Sun carried his son, walking leisurely. The sunlight warmed both of them. "Son," Su Sun suddenly spoke. Suja looked up at him. Su Sun smiled. "Being with you makes me feel smarter." Suja was taken aback for a moment, then grinned. "Dad, you were always smart. You just don't think enough at times." Su Sun was momentarily stumped by his son's words and reached to pat his head. But Suja ducked away with a chuckle. Su Sun's hand hovered in midair, and he too laughed. He set his son down, holding his hand as they walked forward. After taking a few steps, Suja suddenly inquired, "Dad, are you feeling good today?" Su Sun pondered for a moment and candidly replied, "Quite good." Suja nodded in approval. "That's great." Lowering his gaze, Su Sun asked, "What about you?" Suja blinked. "Me? I'm just here to observe Wang Hao's father's expression." Su Sun was momentarily taken aback, then burst into hearty laughter, the sound echoing far and wide. Ding! Su Sun's Joy 100 Computational Power. Chapter 22. Yate's visit. Su Sun's motors had garnered an exceptional reputation at Shinri, not just good, but so remarkable that the technical department made it a point to discuss it in meetings. Later, when manager Zhang called, his voice radiated delight. "Boss Su, our technical team lights up at the mention of your motors." It was unclear how the news spread. That afternoon, a sleek black business vehicle halted at the factory's entrance. While Su Sun was inside negotiating with Li Gong, old Zhang rushed in, breathless. "Mr. Su, there are visitors outside. They claim to be from Yade." Su Sun was momentarily stunned. Yade? That was one of the leading electric vehicle brands in the country, even larger than Shinri. He set down what he was holding and stepped outside. At the entrance stood two individuals. The first, a man in his 40s clad in a meticulously tailored navy suit. And the second, a younger man carrying a briefcase. "Mr. Su?" The suited man extended his hand. "I am Chun, the procurement manager at Yade." Su Sun shook his hand, feeling a slight sweat in his palms. "Manager Chun, please come inside." He led them to his office and poured some tea. Manager Chun did not touch the tea and got straight to the point. "Mr. Su, we have heard commendable things about your motors and would like to conduct some tests. Is that feasible?" Su Sun nodded. "Certainly." He guided them to the workshop, retrieving the prototype. The young man accompanying Manager Chen took the motor and, without hesitation, began testing. Current, noise, temperature rise, efficiency, each parameter meticulously evaluated. After completing the tests, he looked up at Manager Chun. "Chun, this motor," he paused, "is even slightly superior to what Shinri uses." Manager Chun was momentarily taken aback. He took the data sheet, reviewed it from top to bottom, then looked up at Su Sun. "Mr. Su, have you altered your processes?" Su Sun was also taken aback. He turned to Li Gong, who stood nearby, scratching his head and chuckling softly. "Mr. Su, we recently tried a few minor modifications, optimizing the winding method and adjusting the arrangement of the magnetic steel. We didn't expect such positive results." Su Sun opened his mouth, unsure of what to say. He was unaware of the changes that had already been implemented. Manager Chen glanced at Li Gong and then back at Su Sun, his gaze revealing something unspoken. Mr. Su, he began, Ye would like to collaborate with you. We're looking at 3,000 units monthly, at a price 5 higher than Shinri. Su Sun was taken aback. 3,000 units. 5 higher than Shinri. He opened his mouth, intending to respond, but swallowed his words instead. Manager Chen studied him, waiting a few seconds before asking, Mr. Su, is there an issue? Su Sun remained silent for a few seconds, recalling Shinri. He remembered how Manager Zhang had initially stopped him at the entrance, granting him 5 minutes to sign the first contract. He thought of the annual contract that had solidified his factory's foundation. He couldn't afford to offend Shinri. Yet he also did not wish to forego Yade. He raised his head and looked at Manager Chun. Manager Chun, may I have some time to consider this? I will provide you with an answer by tomorrow. Manager Chun regarded him for a moment, then nodded. Very well. I will await your news. After they departed, Su Sun sat in his office, immobilized for quite some time. That evening, he shared the situation with his son. After listening, Suja remained silent, deep in thought for a moment. Then he looked up. Dad, sign with Yade. Su Sun gazed at him. What about Shinri? Suja interrupted. Sign with Yade. But proactively inform Shinri. Just say our production capacity is limited and that Yade approached us. We cannot refuse. At the same time, promise Shinri priority for equally produced goods, supplying them first, with the remainder going to Yade. Su Sun was momentarily stunned, his expression reflecting complexity. This idea. Suja blinked. What's the matter? Su Sun contemplated. Will Shinri accept this? Suja smiled. Dad, think about it. What does Shinri fear the most? It's that we supply our best products to others, leaving them with subpar goods. Now, by proactively informing them of our priority supply, what can they be uneasy about? As for Yade, they approached us, so they are already prepared for us to have other clients. As long as the quality is excellent, they will not mind. Su Sun observed him for several seconds before breaking into a smile. All right. He stood up. I will handle it tomorrow. The following morning, Su Sun called Manager Zhang first. After the call connected, he took a deep breath. Manager Zhang, I have something to report. He recounted the details regarding Yade. Upon finishing, there was a brief silence on the other end. Su Sun's heart raced. Then Manager Zhang spoke, his tone somewhat grave. Mr. Su, Yade approaching you is a good thing. However, after our long-standing partnership, you must not play favorites. Su Sun quickly replied, Manager Zhang, I assure you, the same products will be prioritized for Shinri. Yade will only receive the remaining capacity. Manager Zhang remained silent for a few moments, then sighed. Very well. Yade's team is astute. Once they set their sights on something, it won't slip away. Your initiative to call is commendable. Su Sun felt a wave of relief wash over him. Thank you for your understanding, Manager Zhang. After hanging up, he sat there, wiping the sweat from his brow. He then dialed Manager Chun. Manager Chun, I will sign the contract. A month later, Yade's orders stabilized. The machines in the workshop operated at a faster pace, and 10 more workers were added, working in shifts, day and night without pause. At the end of the month, while calculating the accounts, Su Sun sat in his office, the ledger spread before him. Li Gong pushed the door open. Mr. Su, how is it looking? Su Sun lifted his head, his eyes slightly reddened, yet his lips curled into a broad smile. Boldly, he declared, his voice somewhat airy, this month, our profits surpassed 2 million. Li Gong was momentarily stunned, then slapped the table. Damn! He began to pace around the office, shouting, 2 million. 2 million in a single month. Do old Zhang and old Lu know? Su Sun observed him, chuckling, as laughter filled the air. Tears welled up in his eyes once more. He lowered his gaze to the numbers in the ledger, recalling a year ago when he sat by the roadside, lost, uncertain of what tomorrow would bring. He remembered his son handing him the first blueprint, sweetly declaring, Dad, this motor is better than the current one. He thought of the days when he was berated at the door, the days when he was pushed away and not allowed entry. He took a deep breath, slowly exhaling. That evening, upon returning home, he embraced his son, standing in the courtyard for an extended period. Suja remained still in his father's embrace. Dad, he suddenly spoke. Yes? Why are you crying? Su Sun was taken aback for a moment, then laughed. Who is crying? Suja pointed at his father's eyes. They're red. Su Sun released him, squatting to meet his gaze. Son, we are now earning 2 million a month. Suja nodded, I know. Su Sun scrutinized him. Is that your reaction? Suja blinked. What reaction should I have? Jumping for joy. Su-sun was momentarily at a loss for words, reaching out to pat his head. Suja ducked, evading him, chuckling softly. Su-sun's hand lingered in the air as he laughed. The moonlight cascaded down, enveloping the father and son. Suja suddenly asked, "Dad, did Shinri say anything else afterward?" Su-sun shook his head, "No." Manager Zhang called later and expressed his understanding. Suja nodded, falling silent once more. He looked up at the moon, silently contemplating. The next technology can be prepared for unlocking. Chapter 23. Ima has arrived not long after Yadi's orders stabilized. New visitors arrived. One afternoon, a black business vehicle drove directly into the factory, halting at the workshop entrance. Su-sun was in the workshop discussing matters with Li Gong when old Zhang rushed in, panting more heavily than usual. "President Su, there are people outside. They say they are from Ima." Su-sun paused momentarily. Ima? That was one of the top 3 electric vehicle manufacturers in the country, even larger than Yadi. He set down what he was holding and stepped outside. Beside the business vehicle stood 3 individuals. At the forefront was a middle-aged man in his 50s. His graying hair neatly styled, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, a deep gray suit, and polished leather shoes. 2 others followed him, one carrying an instrument case, and the other a folder. "President Su?" The middle-aged man approached, extending his hand. "I am Zhao, the purchasing director from Ima." Su-sun shook his hand, feeling the sweat in his palm. "Director Zhao, it's a pleasure." Zhao smiled and glanced into the workshop. "President Su, may we step inside to discuss?" Su-sun quickly ushered them in. Once in the office, he poured tea. Zhao remained standing, peering out the window before turning back. "President Su, we have tested your motors for 3 months." Su-sun, just lifting his teacup, halted. 3 months? He looked at Zhao, bewildered. Zhao pulled a stack of papers from the folder and placed them on the table. "This is our testing report. Efficiency at 92.7, 2 points higher than Japanese motors. Noise at 22 decibels, 5 points lower than Japanese motors. Lifespan tested at 3,000 hours of continuous operation, 0 failures." He pushed the report forward. "President Su, we have searched for 3 years and found no better motor than this." Su-sun stared at the thick stack, filled with data and graphs. He lifted his gaze to Zhao, unsure of what to say. Zhao sat across from him, leaning slightly forward. "President Su, I am here today to discuss a partnership." Su-sun nodded. "Please, go ahead." Zhao looked directly at him, enunciating each word. "Exclusive supply. Your factory's motors will only be supplied to Ima. The price will be marked up by 30. Su-sun was taken aback. "Exclusive. A 30 increase." He observed Zhao's serious expression, his heart racing. 30%. He opened his mouth to respond, but found his mind buzzing. "Director Zhao." He hesitated. "This." Zhao remained silent, merely watching him with a calm yet determined gaze, as if to say, "This condition is irresistible." Su-sun took a deep breath. "Director Zhao, I need to think it over." Zhao nodded, his expression neutral. "Of course. I will await your news." He stood and extended his hand. Su-sun quickly rose and shook it. As Zhao reached the door, he suddenly turned back. "President Su, I will be here for 3 days. I expect your response in 3 days." After he left, Su-sun stood in the office, motionless for a long while. That evening, Zhao was in his hotel room, standing by the window while on the phone. "Oldly, do you think he will agree?" Laughter came from the other end. "Old Zhao, with your terms, who could refuse? A 30 markup for exclusive supply? Anyone would be tempted." Zhao chuckled, but remained silent. "What? Do you still have doubts?" Zhao paused for 2 seconds. "I had someone investigate this factory. It was nearly bankrupt a year ago, drowning in debt. Now, Zaniri and Yadi have approached them, and suddenly their motors have become popular." Oldly said, "So what?" "As long as the product is good." Zhao nodded. "Indeed, the product is excellent. Let's wait for news tomorrow." The next day, Su-sun was distracted all day. He sat in his office, the IMA testing report spread out before him, scrutinizing it again. A 30 increase. Exclusive. These terms were incredibly enticing. He picked up his phone, intending to call his son, but set it down again. In the afternoon, unable to stay still any longer, he returned home early. As he opened the door, his son was sprawled on the table, drawing. Suja looked up at him. "Dad, why are you home so early?" Su-sun approached and sat beside him. "Son," he began, "Ima has made an offer." Suja put down his pen. "What are the terms?" Su-sun replied, "Exclusive supply. With a 30 markup." Suja was taken aback, looking at his father in silence. Su-sun felt uneasy under his gaze. "What do you think?" Suja countered, "Dad, what are your thoughts?" Su-sun pondered for a moment, then honestly admitted, "I am tempted." Suja nodded. And then, Su-sun said, but it feels a bit off. Suja scrutinized him. What feels off? Su-sun contemplated but couldn't articulate it. Just, something feels off. Suja laughed. He stood and walked in front of his father, looking up at him. Dad, think about it. Once we go exclusive, we are tied down. If Ima thrives, we thrive. If Ima falters, we also suffer. Su-sun was momentarily stunned. Suja continued, the electric vehicle market is just beginning to rise. Who can say who will ultimately succeed? Zaniri, Yadi, or Ima? Our goal should be to have all manufacturers using our motors, not to gamble on just one winning. Su-sun gazed at him, his expression gradually shifting. You mean? Suja nodded. Do not sign exclusivity. Supply generally, and sign with them. Su-sun remained silent for several seconds, studying his son's youthful face. He wanted to say something, but swallowed his words. Suddenly, he smiled. All right, I will respond to them tomorrow. On the third day, Zhao was waiting for a call in his hotel room. His phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID and answered. President Su? Su-sun's voice came from the other end. Director Zhao, I apologize for keeping you waiting. As for the exclusivity, I'm afraid it won't work. Zhao was momentarily taken aback, not expecting this answer. President Su, may I ask why? Su-sun conveyed his son's thoughts in his own way. Director Zhao, the electric vehicle market is just beginning. We cannot predict who will win or lose. Our factory is small and cannot bear the risk. General supply is acceptable, but exclusivity is not. Zhao remained silent for a few seconds before smiling. President Su, you are a clear-minded individual. Su-sun was taken aback. Zhao continued, to be honest, our desire for exclusivity stems from fearing you would be snatched away by others. But your perspective is also valid. Su-sun sighed in relief. Director Zhao, for general supply, I assure you the quality will be comparable to what we provide to Zaniri and Yadi. Zhao chuckled. Very well, then we will proceed with general supply. I will have the contract prepared for next week. After hanging up, Zhao sat on the sofa, gazing out the window. His assistant asked, Director Zhao, if he doesn't sign exclusivity, shall we still proceed? Zhao nodded. Yes. The assistant was surprised. But, Zhao interrupted him. The product is good. We must sign even without exclusivity. Zaniri and Yadi both have it. We cannot miss out. He paused, then smiled. This Su-sun is quite intriguing. That evening, Su-sun returned home, bursting through the door, calling out, Son. Suja peeked out from his room. Dad, did you sign? Su-sun walked over, scooping him up and spinning him around. Yes. Ima has agreed to a monthly supply of 5,000 units. Dizzied from the spin, Suja clutched his father's collar. Dad, put me down. Su-sun set him down but remained crouched, his eyes sparkling. Son, do you know, today Director Zhao said I am a clear-minded person. Suja blinked. What did you say? Su-sun chuckled softly. I didn't say anything. I thought to myself, I'm not a clear-minded person, it's all thanks to you. Suja looked at him, then suddenly asked, Are you feeling particularly proud now? Su-sun was taken aback. Suja continued. Being called a clear-minded person must make you feel good, right? Su-sun felt exposed, his face flushing. Hey, kiddo, can't you let Dad look handsome for a while longer? Suja chuckled, playfully patting his father's face. Look handsome. Come on, nobody's watching anyway. Su-sun found himself both amused and exasperated as he caught his son's little hand. All right, Dad's not handsome anymore, is that better? Suja withdrew his hand, chuckling softly. The moonlight streamed through the window, casting a gentle glow upon the father and son. Su-sun stood and led his son back indoors. After a few steps, Suja suddenly said, Dad. Director Zhao said you're a wise man, and indeed you are. Su-sun glanced down at him. Suja looked up, his eyes sparkling. But sometimes, you take a bit longer to understand. Su-sun paused for a moment before bursting into hearty laughter, the sound echoing far and wide. Suja, being led by his father, wore a smile that stretched across his face. Chapter 24. Production bottleneck orders poured in like snowflakes. No exaggeration, they truly resembled snowflakes, stacking higher and higher upon Su-sun's desk. New orders from Shinri, Yadi, and Ima combined had nearly reached a monthly demand of 20,000 units. However, the factory could only produce 5,000 units per month. Su-sun was fraught with anxiety, blisters forming at the corners of his mouth, making it painful to speak. The machines in the workshop ran without pause, day and night, with workers rotating in shifts, yet the production capacity remained limited. Li Gong emerged from the workshop. Exhaustion etched on his face, bloodshot eyes betraying his fatigue. Mr. Su, the workers can't take it anymore. He sat down, gulping a large mouthful of water. If this continues, something bad is bound to happen. Su Sun regarded him silently, acknowledging the truth in Li Gong's words. But what was to be done about the orders? That evening, Su Sun sat silently on the edge of his bed. Suja lay beside him, watching intently. Dad. Su Sun remained unresponsive. Dad, Suja called again, prompting Su Sun to snap back to reality. Suja pointed at the corner of his father's mouth. You have a blister. Su Sun touched it, wincing in pain. Suja observed him and suddenly asked, Is production capacity falling short? Su Sun hesitated briefly, then nodded. Sitting up cross-legged like a miniature adult, Suja declared, Dad. Let me do some calculations. Su Sun watched him intently. Currently, the monthly production capacity is 5,000 units, yielding a profit of 2 million. If we expand to 20,000 units, the profit would be 8 million. Su Sun nodded in agreement. That's true, but expansion requires funds. Suja inquired. How much is needed? Su Sun pondered, renting a new factory, purchasing new equipment, hiring and training staff. Initial investment would be at least 5 million. Suja looked at him earnestly. Is that enough? Su Sun remained silent for a few seconds before nodding. With the funds on hand and accounts receivable, it would barely suffice. Suja remained quiet, simply gazing at him. Su Sun understood he was waiting for something more. There are significant risks, Su Sun continued. What if the market shifts, or if a major client decides to leave? That 5 million would be lost. Suja nodded thoughtfully and then asked, Dad, are you afraid? Su Sun was taken aback. He gazed at his son's small face and those bright eyes. Yes, he admitted honestly. Then will you expand? Su Sun opened his mouth to speak, but found no words. After contemplating, he finally said, I need to think it over. This contemplation lasted 3 days. On the first day, he circled the workshop 3 times, observing the machines whirring rapidly and the workers laboring tirelessly. On the second day, he sat in his office, calculating the figures repeatedly. 5 million invested would yield 20,000 units and 8 million in profit. Yet, what if the market changed, leaving him with nothing? On the third day, he squatted at the workshop entrance, staring blankly at the oldest winding machine. Li Gong approached and squatted beside him. Mr. Su, he said, offering a cigarette. Su Sun accepted it, but did not light it. Li Gong lit his own and took a puff, exhaling slowly. Will you expand? He asked. Su Sun remained silent for a few moments. What if? He began, trailing off. Li Gong understood his unspoken thoughts. Mr. Su, I understand your concerns, but I fear what happens when there are no orders. Su Sun turned to face him. Li Gong gazed at the old machine and said slowly, a year ago, we were on the brink of bankruptcy. Back then, we just wanted any orders. Now that orders are flooding in, we're afraid of having too many. Humans are never satisfied. Su Sun was momentarily taken aback. Li Gong stood up, brushing off his pants. Mr. Su, you make the decision. If you expand, I will work tirelessly. If you choose not to, then we'll continue as we are. Either way is fine. With that, he left. Su Sun remained squatting, staring at the old machine for a long time. That evening, he returned home to find Suja engrossed in drawing at the table. Upon hearing the door, he looked up. Su Sun approached and sat beside him. Son. Suja met his gaze. Su Sun took a deep breath. I've decided to expand the factory. Suja was momentarily stunned, studying his father's face. The blister at the corner of his mouth still lingered, but the light in his eyes had changed. Have you thought it through? I have, Su Sun affirmed with a nod. Fear or not, we must expand. If we don't when the orders are here, we'll regret it when they're gone. Suja looked at him and suddenly smiled. Dad, you've grown up. Su Sun was momentarily taken aback by his words and reached out to pat his son's head. Suja recoiled, giggling softly. Su Sun suspended his hand in midair, laughing too. After their laughter subsided, he stood up. We'll start tomorrow. 2 months later, the new factory had been leased in the Eastern Industrial District, 3 times larger than the old one. New equipment was purchased, 10 winding machines, 5 testing stations, and 2 automatic winding machines. 100 new workers were hired, with the experienced Zhang and Lu mentoring the newcomers. The machines in the workshop roared with activity, ceaseless from dawn till dusk. At the end of the month, Su Sun sat in his new office, ledger spread before him. Li Gong entered, pushing the door open. Mr. Su, what's the figure? Su Sun lifted his head. His eyes slightly reddened, but a broad smile plastered on his face. Old Li, he said, his voice somewhat airy, the monthly production capacity is 20,000 units. Li Gong nodded knowingly. I'm asking about the profit. Su Sun glanced down at the ledger. 8 million. Li Gong was momentarily stunned before he slammed his palm on the table. Wow. He paced around the office, shouting excitedly. 8 million. 8 million in a month. That's 100 million in a year. Su-sun smiled at him, laughter bubbling forth until his eyes glistened with unshed tears. He recalled the version of himself squatting at the workshop entrance 3 days prior, reminded of the notion that even fear must yield to expansion. He remembered his son's words, "You've grown up." Lowering his gaze to the figures in the ledger, he suddenly realized his hands were trembling. It wasn't fear. It was exhilaration. That evening, he embraced his son, standing together in the courtyard for what felt like an eternity. Suja remained still in his father's embrace. "Dad," he suddenly spoke. Why are your hands still shaking?" Su-sun paused, glancing down at his hands. Indeed, they trembled. Unable to suppress his laughter, he replied, "I don't know. Perhaps it's just too much joy." Suja looked at him and unexpectedly asked, "Are you happier than the day you paid off the loan?" Su-sun pondered for a moment. "It's different. That day was a relief. Today," he searched for the right words. Suja provided, "Today. It feels like you've proven yourself?" Su-sun was momentarily taken aback before bursting into laughter again. Yes. It's truly a sense of accomplishment." Suja joined in his laughter. Moonlight cascaded down, enveloping both father and son in its soft glow. Suja suddenly inquired, "Dad, are orders still coming in?" Su-sun nodded. "Yes, they are. What shall we do then?" Su-sun contemplated briefly. "Expand again," he declared. Suja's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Dad, your courage is growing." Su-sun affectionately ruffled his son's hair. "I learned it from you." Chapter 25. Spring outing at kindergarten. Though the factory was bustling with activity, Su-sun chose to take a leave of absence on the day of the spring outing. At 6 in the morning, 3 large buses were parked outside the kindergarten, and the children, with their backpacks, chattered excitedly as they squeezed their way on board. Parents stood nearby. Some departed after dropping off their children, while others boarded the buses with them. Su-sun held his son's hand, standing at the end of the line. Wang Hao's father, Mr. Wang, was also present, clad in casual attire and sunglasses, making him quite noticeable among the crowd. A few parents were conversing with him, and he was multitasking, responding while casting glances in this direction. Upon spotting Su-sun, his eyes lit up. "Mr. Su," he called, jogging over with a broad smile. "What a coincidence that you are here too." Su-sun nodded in acknowledgement. Mr. Wang sidled up beside him, eager to establish rapport. "I heard your factory has expanded recently. Have you secured a new facility? That's truly impressive." "I always said, with your capabilities, success was inevitable." Su-sun responded with non-committal nods. Mr. Wang grew increasingly animated. "When can we arrange a meal together? I have a few friends who would love to meet you." Su-sun glanced at him. The man's face was plastered with a smile, his eyes narrowed into slits, a stark contrast to his prior braggadocio. He averted his gaze and remained silent. "Mr. Wang chuckled awkwardly, still lingering nearby. When it came time to board the bus, he rushed to claim the seat next to Su-sun. Su-sun did not object, but also offered little engagement. As the bus set off towards the countryside, Mr. Wang filled the air with chatter, asking about factory matters, praising Suja's intelligence, and lamenting his past oversight. Su-sun listened, occasionally responding with a murmured aha, while mostly gazing out the window. Suja, perched on his father's lap, turned to glance at Mr. Wang, who smiled back awkwardly. Suja did not reciprocate the smile, returning his attention to the scenery outside. Upon arriving at the farm, the sun shone brightly over fields of various vegetables, with a few cows grazing in the distance. The children erupted from the bus and began to run, heedless of the teacher's attempts to call them back with loudspeakers. The first event was a carrot pulling contest. The teachers divided the children into groups of 5, allowing parents to cheer them on without intervening physically. Wang Hao and Suja were placed in different groups. The children in Wang Hao's group were eager, with Wang Hao at the front, rolling up his sleeves, determined to win. Mr. Wang stood nearby, shouting encouragement. "Go, son. Pull hard." With the sound of the whistle, the children commenced their efforts. Wang Hao was the fastest, quickly pulling out a large carrot and holding it up triumphantly. However, the rest of his group lagged behind. A little girl struggled to extract her carrot, her face reddening with frustration. A small boy managed to pull out a carrot no thicker than a finger, grimacing at it before tossing it aside. Wang Hao, upon witnessing this, scowled. "Why are you all so slow? It's your fault for being useless." His outburst startled the little girl, causing her to drop her carrot and tears to well in her eyes. "Hurry up, we're going to lose," he yelled, prompting the girl to burst into tears. A teacher rushed over to console her, while Wang Hao continued to stomp his feet in frustration. Ultimately, Wang Hao's group lost the contest. In a fit of anger, he threw the carrot to the ground, pointing at the crying girl. "It's all your fault. Crying, that's all you do." The girl sobbed even harder. Mr. Wang, unable to maintain his composure, approached and pulled his son aside. Enough. Losing is losing." Wang Hao shrugged off his hand, eyes reddening as he glared at the girl. Su Sun observed the scene with a furrowed brow, glancing down at his son. Suja was diligently pulling carrots alongside his teammates, working harmoniously together, those who were stronger assisting the weaker ones, each taking turns to pull out the carrots. When the whistle blew, it was clear that Suja's group had pulled the most. The teacher approached to count their harvest and joyfully announced, "This group is the winner." The children erupted into cheers. A child sidled up to Suju and asked, "How are you so amazing?" Suja dusted off his hands and replied nonchalantly, "My dad taught me that teamwork is essential." The teacher's eyes sparkled upon hearing this. She walked over to Su Sun and said, "Mr. Su, you truly know how to teach your child. Understanding the importance of teamwork at such a young age is remarkable." Su Sun was momentarily taken aback. He opened his mouth, as if to say something, but swallowed his words. He had never explicitly taught such lessons. They were simply insights his son had gleaned on his own. He glanced at Suja, who stood there looking up at him with a smile, his eyes sparkling. Su Sun felt a warmth rise in his cheeks. He chuckled sheepishly, rubbing the back of his head. "You flatter me." Really, several parents gathered around, chiming in with compliments. "Mr. Su, you truly excel at parenting. This child is bound for greatness. How do you usually teach him? Share your wisdom with us." Su Sun found himself ensnared in a circle of admiration, feeling somewhat out of his depth. He glanced at Suja, who was grinning like a little fox. That evening, as they returned home, Su Sun sat on the edge of the bed, watching his son. Suja leaned beside him, a small stick in hand, tracing patterns on the bedspread. "Son," Su Sun suddenly spoke. Suja did not look up. Su Sun contemplated for a moment before saying, "Today, the teacher praised my parenting skills." Suja nodded. "I heard." Su Sun continued, "What did you say?" Suja raised his head, feigning innocence. "What did I say?" Su Sun recounted. "You said, my dad taught me that teamwork is essential." Suja blinked innocently. "Yes, that is what you taught me." Su Sun paused, reflecting that he had indeed never explicitly instructed such principles. He gazed at his son's face, at those bright eyes. "Son, you are better than me." Suja looked at him and suddenly rolled his eyes. "You're my dad. Of course, you're better than me." Su Sun was momentarily stunned before breaking into laughter. As he chuckled, he felt the warmth in his eyes. He reached out and pulled his son close, ruffling his hair affectionately. Suja swayed back and forth but did not resist. "Dad," he mumbled, "your hands are too strong." Su Sun released him, observing his son as Suja smoothed his tousled hair, pouting slightly. "I appreciate the sentiment, but please don't ruffle my hair." Su Sun paused, then burst into hearty laughter. Ding! Su Sun's emotional moment earns him 200 computational power. Suja silently glanced at the system interface in his mind, a smile creeping onto his lips. Chapter 26. The risks of technical leaks. Among the new workers was a man named Zhao Chong. Having been at the factory for over a month, he was diligent and amiable, addressing everyone as brother or sister. When old Zhang, suffering from back issues, needed help with heavy lifting, Zhao Chong volunteered. When old Lu struggled with his eyesight, Zhao Chong assisted him with threading wires. When Engineer Li was overwhelmed, Zhao Chong was quick to run errands, fetching tools and serving tea. Before long, he was quite familiar with the veteran workers. One day, Suja was crouched in a corner of the workshop, observing Engineer Li and his team as they calibrated a new machine. Zhao Chong passed by, holding a teacup and smiling at him. "Xiaozhe, back to see the excitement?" Suja nodded. Zhao Chong didn't linger, heading towards the back courtyard. Suja watched his retreating figure before returning his focus to Engineer Li's work. A few minutes later, he suddenly stood up. "Li Grandpa," he called. "I'm stepping out for a moment." As he exited the workshop, he cast a glance towards the back courtyard. Zhao Chong was standing at the entrance of the R&D department, peering inside. That area was typically deserted. Engineer Li was in there with Zhang Ming and Wang Lei conducting tests, and generally, no one ventured there without reason. Zhao Chong, with his teacup in hand, seemed to be waiting for someone. Suja remained silent, watching from the corner. After a few seconds, Zhao Chong took a step inside but quickly retreated. He then turned and strolled back leisurely. Upon reaching the corner, he spotted Suja and was momentarily taken aback. Xiaozhe, what are you doing here? Suja looked up at him. Looking for my dad. Zhao Chong chuckled and reached out as if to pat Suju's head. Suju instinctively stepped back, avoiding his touch. Zhao Chong's hand hung awkwardly in midair before he sheepishly withdrew it. His father was in the office, so he went in. He had just walked away with a cup of tea. Suja stood there, observing his father's retreating figure. Then he turned around and headed into the office. Su Sun was reviewing reports when he noticed his son entering, momentarily taken aback. What's the matter? He inquired. Suja closed the door and approached him. Dad, do you know Zhao Chong? Su Sun set down what he was handling and looked at him. The new guy? He works diligently. What's up? Suja replied. I just saw him standing outside the RD department, peering inside for quite some time. Su Sun was momentarily stunned. The RD department? What was he doing there? Suja shook his head. I don't know, but it feels suspicious. Su Sun regarded him in silence. Suja continued. He has been at the factory for just over a month and seems to get along well with everyone. Old Zhang and old Lu think highly of him. Yet he frequently wanders towards the backyard. Today he stood outside the RD department for a long while, and only left when he saw me come out. Su Sun remained silent for a few seconds before rising. Let us go find Zhao Hu. Zhao Hu was in the guard's room, polishing his motorcycle. Upon seeing Su Sun enter, he stood up. Mr. Su. Su Sun waved his hand and closed the door. Zhao Hu, keep an eye on Zhao Chong for me. Zhao Hu looked puzzled. Zhao Chong, the new one? Su Sun nodded. See what he typically does, especially after work. Without questioning further, Zhao Hu nodded. Understood, Mr. Su. 3 days later, Zhao Hu knocked on the office door. Su Sun was reviewing reports, and Suja was sketching beside him. Mr. Su, there's an issue with Zhao Chong. Su Sun set down his materials. Go on. Zhao Hu continued. I've been watching him these past few days. He works normally during the day, but after hours, he tends to linger around the factory. The night before last, he circled the RD area twice. Last night, he took a picture through the window with his phone. Su Sun's expression darkened. He took a photo? Zhao Hu nodded. He shot it through the window. The lighting was poor, but the phone's flash went off. Su Sun stood up and paced the room. Call the police, immediately. Dad, Suja's voice interjected. Su Sun turned to him. Suja set down his pen and looked up. Before we call the police, let us do something first. Su Sun was taken aback. What do you mean? Suja suggested, let us spread some false information. We can see what he photographs and where he sends it. Su Sun regarded him silently. Suja continued, if we call the police now and arrest him, the people behind him will still be at large. By disseminating false information, we can bait him into revealing their identities. Then we can capture them all at once. Su Sun hesitated for a few seconds, looking into his son's bright, calm eyes. What if the false information is taken seriously? Suja interrupted. Dad, the false information is meant for Zhao Chong. The real technology is safely locked with Engineer Li. Su Sun studied him for several seconds before taking a deep breath and nodding. All right, I'll follow your lead. He turned to Zhao Hu. Go summon Engineer Li. When Engineer Li entered, he appeared bewildered. Mr. Su, what is going on? Su Sun lowered his voice and explained briefly. After listening, Li seemed taken aback and then nodded. Understood. The next afternoon, Engineer Li retrieved a stack of papers from a cabinet and spread them out on the table. He then stood up to pour some water but accidentally knocked over his teacup, spilling tea everywhere. In his flurry to clean up, he accidentally knocked the stack of papers to the floor, scattering them about. Bending down to pick them up, he returned them to the table and then stepped outside. The stack lay there, revealing the words New Motor Technology Parameters, Confidential. Zhao Chong passed by and glanced over. He didn't pause, but continued walking. However, after work that evening, he circled back. The RD department was locked, and the windows were shut but not secured. Zhao Chong stood outside, peering in. The stack of papers was still on the table, right by the window. He glanced around. No one was in sight. He pushed open the window, reached inside, and pulled out the stack of papers. Flipping it open, he began taking photos with his phone, one after another. After finishing, he returned the papers, closed the window, and turned to leave. Unbeknownst to him, Zhao Hu was in the adjacent warehouse, recording his every move with his phone. The next day, Zhao Chong did not show up for work. Engineer Li called him, but found his phone off. Zhao Hu rode his motorcycle to his home. The landlord informed him that Zhao Chong had vacated the premises before dawn, claiming he was returning to his hometown. Zhao Hu lingered at the entrance for a few seconds before riding westward toward Yongqiang Motors. He stopped a distance away, observing the entrance. After waiting for over half an hour, he finally saw Zhao Chong emerge, wearing a smile, walking briskly, and clutching an envelope. Once Zhao Chong had gone far enough, Zhao Hu pulled out his phone and snapped a picture of the factory entrance. That evening, Su Sun sat in his office, reviewing the photographs taken by Zhao Hu. He stared at them for a long time before slamming the photos down on the table. Lu Yongqiang, it's you again. Suja stood beside him, watching. Su Sun looked up at his son. What's our next move? Suja pondered for a moment. Let us make Zhao Chong believe the false information is genuine. Once Lu Yongqiang receives the false information, he will undoubtedly begin preparations. Once he invests money and time, we can ensnare him. Su Sun gazed at his son and suddenly laughed. Where did you get such a brilliant mind? Suja rolled his eyes. Dad, stop praising me. I have a fragile ego. Su Sun paused, then burst into hearty laughter. While laughing, he reached out to ruffle his son's hair. Suja recoiled, evading him. You just praised me, and now you want to mess up my hair? Su Sun's hand hovered midair, and his laughter intensified. He withdrew his hand, gazing out the window. Lu Yongqiang, let us see how you escape this time. Chapter 27. Turning the tables upon receiving the highly confidential technical documents, Lu Yongqiang was elated. He flipped through the materials 3 times, growing increasingly excited. The motor parameters, winding methods, and magnetic steel arrangements were all significantly more advanced than what he currently utilized. Excellent. He slammed his hand on the table. Let us see how Su Sun acts so arrogantly now. He immediately summoned the head of the technical department. Using this data, prepare a sample immediately. The technical chief hesitated after glancing at the documents. Mr. Lu, do these parameters match our existing equipment? Lu Yongqiang glared at him. If the equipment doesn't suffice, then modify the equipment. I want to see a finished product within a month. The technical chief shrank back, not daring to speak further. A month later, Yongqiang Motors held a grand product launch for their new offering, complete with banners, firecrackers, and several local media reporters in attendance. Lu Yongqiang stood on stage, brimming with confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting our latest development, the next generation silent motor. It boasts a 10 higher efficiency than similar products, 20 less noise, yet is priced 20 lower than market rates. Applause erupted from the audience. Lu Yongqiang grew more animated as he spoke. At Yongqiang, we aim to provide high-quality motors that everyone can afford. Those unscrupulous manufacturers charging exorbitant prices will inevitably be eliminated by the market. His words were clearly directed at someone, and everyone present understood. The day following the launch, several small clients approached to cancel their orders with Yuan Heng, redirecting their business to Lu Yongqiang. When Su Sun received the news, he was in the workshop discussing matters with Engineer Li. He paused, his expression turning pale. Son, he found Suja. Lu Yongqiang has released a product, priced 20 lower than ours, and some clients have switched. Suja, squatting in a corner observing Zhang Ming debug a machine, looked up upon hearing this. He gazed at his father's somewhat ashen face and smiled. Dad, why are you worried? Su Sun was momentarily taken aback by his son's smile. I'm not worried, it's just. Suja stood up, dusting off his hands. Dad, just wait and see. Su Sun looked at his son's beaming face and suddenly felt less anxious. However, he still felt a tinge of unease. What if? Suja interrupted him. Dad, there is no what if. As he spoke, his eyes sparkled and the corners of his mouth curled up, betraying no semblance of a 5-year-old. Su Sun opened his mouth, intending to respond, but swallowed his words instead. In the following days, a string of good news arrived. First, the very customer who had canceled their order called. Their tone transformed. Mr. Su, do you still have that motor? I want it. I need it right away. Su Sun was momentarily taken aback. But you had canceled, didn't you? There was a brief silence on the other end, followed by a rueful chuckle. Mr. Su, I was mistaken. Yongqiang's motor is utterly unusable. It sounds like a tractor and consumes electricity like there's no tomorrow, racking up an extra 2 kilowatts a day. The customers are demanding refunds. Gripping the phone, Su Sun found himself at a loss for words. He glanced at his son, who was engrossed in drawing at the table. His head down. The second call, the third call, the fourth call, each one was from a returning customer. Su Sun answered them one by one, affirming, yes, we have stock. No problem, at the same price as before. How long will the contract be signed for? You tell me. Within a week, he secured 5 long-term contracts, each spanning 3 years, even more stable than before. Meanwhile, Lu Yongqiang's side was in complete turmoil. The return rate soared to 30, with customers blocking his door in protest. and officials from the Industrial and Commercial Bureau arrived after receiving complaints about the quality of his products, demanding an investigation. Lu Yongxiang stood in his office, his face turning green. He summoned the head of the technical department and flung the documents at him. Is this the sample you produced? Is this what you claim to be without issues? The technical head recoiled in fear. Mr. Lu, I followed the documentation. He stammered. I don't understand how this happened. Lu Yongxiang gasped, his eyes reddening. He picked up the phone and called Zhao Chong. What kind of trash documentation did you give me? What on earth have you produced? Zhao Chong, bewildered on the other end of the line, replied, Mr. Lu, the materials I provided were the latest from their R&D department. I watched them being compiled. Watch them, Lu Yongxiang bellowed. Then explain to me why everything produced is garbage. Zhao Chong opened his mouth, but found no words. He had indeed watched the parameters being compiled, meticulously capturing them one by one. So how could there be a mistake? What he didn't know was that those parameters were indeed from the R&D department. But the decimal points had been altered by engineer Li 0. 85 had become 1. 85 and 92. 7 had transformed into 9. 27. It seemed a mere slip of a digit, yet the outcome was drastically different. After listening to Zhao Hu's report, Su Sun held his son and laughed until his eyes squinted. Son, you truly are a little fox. Su Zhe, cradled in his father's embrace, rolled his eyes. Dad. That S called turning the tables. Su Sun paused, then burst into hearty laughter. Yes, turning the tables. He set his son down and crouched to meet his gaze. How did you know Lu Yongxiang would follow through? Su Zhe blinked. That man is greedy. Once he gets hold of something good, he can't wait to produce it and seize the market. Who would take the time to verify? Su Sun looked at him, his eyes filled with mirth. And Su Zhe continued, even if he checks, he won't catch it. Altering a decimal point makes the parameters still appear reasonable. Only when it's actually produced do the problems reveal themselves. Su Sun nodded, suddenly recalling something. When did you make that change? Su Zhe grinned. When Grandpa Li was drafting the blueprints, I was watching and casually made the adjustment. Su Sun was taken aback. He gazed at his son's small face, wanting to say something but swallowing his words again. He then reached out, intending to tousle his hair. Su Zhe pulled back his neck to evade. Here we go again? Su Sun's hand hung in midair, laughter bubbling up even more. All right, I want to mess with your hair. Su Zhe straightened his hair and looked up at him. Dad, are you feeling particularly proud? Su Sun was momentarily stunned. Su Zhe continued. Seeing Lu Yongxiang fall into such a trap must be gratifying, right? Su Sun felt exposed, his face flushing. You little rascal. Su Zhe chuckled a couple of times before darting away. Su Sun stood there, watching the small figure retreat, laughing aloud. How did his son's little brain come up with all this? Chapter 28. Intelligent electromechanical chips. As the end of the month approached, Su Sun sequestered himself in his office, ensuring the door was tightly shut. Engineer Li knocked 3 times from outside, but the door remained closed. On the 4th knock, the door finally swung open. Su Sun stood at the threshold, ledger in hand. Upon seeing his face, Engineer Li instinctively understood the gravity of the situation. How much? Su Sun remained silent, handing over the ledger. Engineer Li accepted it, peering down, his eyes widening slowly. 850,000. He raised his head to look at Su Sun. That's 50,000 more than last month. Su Sun nodded. Engineer Li stared at the figure for 3 seconds before slapping Su Sun on the shoulder. Mr. Su, we are destined for greatness. Su Sun staggered back a step from the force of the slap, but merely smiled. Engineer Li paced the corridor twice, muttering, 850,000. That's 100 million in a year, 100 million. I've never seen so much money in my life. He returned to Su Sun, eyes gleaming. Mr. Su, do you think we can surpass 20 million next year? No, 30 million? Su Sun chuckled and shook his head at his enthusiasm. Steady now. Old Li. Engineer Li paused before breaking into a grin. Right, steady. Mr. Su, your demeanor has truly changed. After saying this, he glanced at the ledger again, chuckling softly, and turned to leave. Su Sun stood at the door, watching his figure disappear at the end of the corridor. He looked down at the ledger in his hand, his hands trembling slightly. Taking a deep breath, he closed the ledger and tucked it away in the drawer. That evening, upon returning home, Su Sun found his son bent over the table, engrossed in drawing. Su Zhe lifted his head at the sound of the door, momentarily stunned as he took in his father's face. Dad, why are your eyes red again? Su Sun approached and sat beside him. It's nothing, he replied. It was just windy outside. Su Zhe scrutinized him for 2 seconds, but didn't press further. He lowered his head and resumed his drawing. Su-sun sat beside him, watching as the pencil danced across the paper, creating a series of crooked lines. Suddenly, he spoke up. Son. Suja did not look up. Su-sun continued. I tallied the accounts today. Suja paused his pen, raising his head to meet his father's gaze. Su-sun's lips slowly curled into a smile. 850,000. He articulated the words softly, yet each syllable was pronounced with clarity. Suja regarded him in silence. After a brief pause, sensing his son's lack of response, Su-sun felt a sense of urgency. 850,000. In 1 month. Aren't you going to say something? Suja blinked. What should I say? Su-sun was momentarily taken aback. Suja continued, congratulations? Or maybe wow. Su-sun found himself at a loss for words. Observing the amused expression on his son's face, Suja suddenly laughed. He set his pencil down, stood up, and walked in front of his father, gazing up at him. Dad, you are truly impressive. Su-sun was taken aback. Suja continued, a year ago, we were in debt by millions. Now we're earning 850,000 in a month. You are remarkable. As he spoke, his eyes sparkled, his voice soft yet earnest with every word. Su-sun looked at him, feeling a sudden sting in his nose. He reached out, lifting his son onto his lap. Son, he said, I want to share something with you. Suja looked at him expectantly. What is it? Su-sun pondered for a moment before saying, today. Oldly asked me if we could surpass 30 million next year. I didn't answer him, but in my heart, I'm contemplating where we should head next. Suja blinked. Where do you want to go? Su-sun gazed at him and said, Father wishes to expand the market for our motors, not just for electric vehicles, but also for fans, washing machines, and range hoods. In the future, even air conditioners and refrigerators will utilize our motors. As Suja listened, his eyes gradually gleamed with excitement. Dad, that's a brilliant idea. Su-sun felt a bit shy from his son's praise. Really? Suja nodded affirmatively. He slid off his father's lap, dashed to the table, and retrieved a piece of paper. The paper was adorned with several crooked squares, yet they were discernible. Dad, look. Su-sun took it and leaned down to inspect. What is this? Suja pointed to the first square. An intelligent motor. For the appliances you just mentioned, washing machines, air conditioners, and refrigerators. We need to ensure the motor can automatically adjust its speed. It should spin slowly while washing delicate fabrics and speed up for denim. Different speeds save energy and protect clothes. Su-sun's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. This is excellent. Can we achieve it? Suja nodded. Yes. But we need someone dedicated to this. Su-sun pondered for a moment. What about Zhang Ming and Wang Lei? What do you think? Suja hesitated. Those 2 college students? Su-sun confirmed with a nod. They have been here for almost 3 months, working diligently and learning quickly. Engineer Lee mentioned that they are intelligent and eager to delve deeper. Suja looked at him and suddenly laughed. Dad, now you can discern character. Su-sun was momentarily taken aback by his words and reached out to pat his son's head, but Suja quickly dodged. Here we go again. Su-sun's hand lingered in the air as he chuckled and playfully scolded. Rascal, I'm being serious. Suja laughed again and leaned closer. All right, let's have them give it a try. Su-sun continued to examine the paper. The second square was labeled chip. Suja pointed out, for the motor to be intelligent, it requires a control chip. If we produce the chip ourselves, it will be more cost-effective and efficient. Su-sun was taken aback. A chip? We can manufacture that? Suja looked at him and smiled. Yes, we can. Su-sun stared at him for several seconds, then suddenly asked, Son, be honest with me. Suja met his gaze. Su-sun paused and inquired, Are you not an ordinary person? Suja was momentarily stunned. He looked at his father's face, dark and thin, with wrinkles at the corners of his eyes, but his eyes were bright and intent. There was no fear or doubt in that gaze, just a desire to understand. After contemplating, he smiled. Dad, I'm just your son, perhaps a bit smarter. Su-sun studied him for several seconds before breaking into laughter. As he laughed, he reached out and tousled his son's hair. This time, Suja did not evade. Being smart is good, Su-sun remarked. I'm counting on you to support me in my old age. Suja rolled his eyes. Dad, you're just in your 30s. What do you mean by old age? Su-sun was taken aback, but then burst into hearty laughter, tears almost spilling from his eyes. Suja looked at him in confusion. Dad, what are you laughing about? Su-sun waved his hand, unable to articulate his amusement. After he calmed down, he looked at his son. Son, he said, the best decision I have ever made in my life was not to give you to your mother back then. Suja was momentarily stunned. He gazed at his father's face, At that smile, suddenly feeling an urge to cry, but he held it back. He extended his hand and gave his father a light tap on the face. "Dad, don't get sentimental." Su-sun was momentarily taken aback by the tap, which only made him laugh harder. The next evening, Su-sun sat at the table reviewing reports, while his son was nearby, engrossed in drawing. Suddenly, Suja sprang up and dashed into the inner room. When he returned, he held a sheet of paper triumphantly. He slapped it down in front of his father. "Dad, take a look at this." Su-sun glanced down and was immediately taken aback. The paper was filled with intricate lines, winding like a labyrinth, accompanied by small squares densely annotated with letters and numbers. He stared at it for 3 seconds before lifting his gaze to his son. "What is this?" Suja pointed at the drawing, going through it one by one. "Dad, this is the control chip for the intelligent motor." Su-sun blinked in astonishment. "A chip?" Suja nodded. "With this, the motor will no longer operate mindlessly. It can adjust its speed and torque according to commands and even provide feedback on its operational status." Su-sun listened, his eyes widening with each word. "Feedback? How does that work?" Suja pondered for a moment and offered an analogy. "For instance, if this chip is installed in a washing machine, it will know whether it is washing or spinning and automatically adjust the speed. If it gets jammed, it will stop and alert, preventing damage to the motor." Su-sun stood frozen for a few seconds. He looked down at the drawing, then back up at his son. Looking at his son's small face and bright eyes, he suddenly recalled their conversation from the previous night. Just yesterday, his son had mentioned the intelligent motor. And today he produced the design? He opened his mouth to say something, then swallowed his words. Instead, he pointed at the drawing and asked, "Did you draw this?" Suja nodded. Su-sun stared at him for several seconds. "You told me about it yesterday, and today you've produced the drawing?" Suja blinked. "I thought of it yesterday and drew it today." Su-sun fell silent for a few seconds. He examined the drawing, those winding lines, the dense annotations, and the concepts he could hardly grasp. He suddenly felt at a loss for words. "Son," he finally said, his voice somewhat airy, "how did you come to possess such a mind?" Suja was taken aback for a moment, then chuckled. "Dad, you've already asked that." Su-sun was momentarily speechless, raising his hand to pat his son's head. His hand lifted but then hesitated. He looked at his son and suddenly inquired, "Can we actually create this?" Suja shook his head. "We can't manufacture the chip. We need to outsource that. However, we can handle the control algorithms and design and apply for a patent." Su-sun nodded. "How much will that cost?" Suja counted on his fingers. "The initial production run will cost several $100,000, plus research and development expenses. Roughly around 1 million. Su-sun was taken aback. 1 million. He stared at the drawing, remaining silent for several seconds. Then he gritted his teeth. "Let us invest." Suja looked at him, blinking in surprise. "Dad, aren't you afraid?" Su-sun paused, afraid of what? Suja replied, "Afraid of losing money. 1 million is substantial." Su-sun contemplated for a moment before breaking into a smile. "Son, a year ago, we were in debt for several million, and I wasn't afraid then." Suja regarded him. Su-sun continued, "Back then, what scared me was the lack of hope. Now we have hope, so what is there to fear about losing money?" Suja scrutinized him for 2 seconds before chuckling. "Dad, that was quite a handsome thing to say." Su-sun felt his face flush with embarrassment from the compliment, reaching out to ruffle his son's hair again. This time, Suja did not evade. Su-sun's hand landed on his head, giving it a couple of affectionate rubs. Suja fixed his tousled hair and grimaced slightly. "All right, that's enough." Su-sun looked at him and couldn't help but laugh. The following day, Su-sun summoned Zhang Ming and Wang Lei to his office. When they entered, they wore puzzled expressions. "Mr. Su, what's the matter?" Su-sun said nothing but spread the drawing across the table. "Take a look at this." Zhang Ming leaned in, glancing at it. After a couple of seconds, his eyes widened in astonishment. He bent down, almost pressing his face against the paper. Wang Lei leaned over as well, looking at it, completely transfixed. Zhang Ming studied the drawing for a full minute before lifting his head to look at Su-sun. His face was flushed with excitement. "Mr. Su, is this a chip design? Is this the control chip for the intelligent motor?" Su-sun nodded. Zhang Ming stared at the drawing, his hands beginning to tremble. He picked up the paper, flipping it over and over, scrutinizing it repeatedly. The architecture, the algorithm. He lifted his head, gazing at Su-sun. His eyes slightly reddened. "Mr. Su, who designed these blueprints? This could revolutionize the industry." Wang Lei stood nearby, fixated on the drawings, his breath coming in quick gasps. Observing their expressions, Su Sun felt a surge of emotion within him. Can we accomplish this? He inquired. Zhang Ming paused momentarily, glancing at Wang Lei before returning his gaze to the blueprints. Taking a deep breath, he replied, Mr. Su, this is something we've never attempted before, but we are eager to learn. His voice trembled slightly, yet his eyes sparkled with determination. Wang Lei nodded vigorously, managing to utter, Mr. Su, allow us to give it a try. Su Sun scrutinized them. Two young men, their faces flushed and eyes alight with fervor, stood before him, awaiting his response. He suddenly recalled their first days, when they squatted at the factory entrance, eating steamed buns. A smile crept across his face. Very well, I place this in your hands. Zhang Ming was momentarily taken aback, staring at Su Sun with his mouth agape. Mr. Su, are you sure we can handle this? Will you entrust it to us? Su Sun nodded affirmatively. You've been here nearly 4 months, working diligently and learning rapidly. Engineer Li mentioned your tenacity and sharp minds. If not you, then who? As Zhang Ming listened, his eyes grew even redder. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but found his throat constricted, unable to utter a word. He exchanged a glance with Wang Lei, who was also looking back at him. In unison, they bowed deeply. Thank you, Mr. Su. Su Sun was momentarily taken aback by their gesture. Hey, what are you doing? Zhang Ming straightened, looking at him with bright eyes. Mr. Su, coming from rural backgrounds, encountering a boss like you is a stroke of fortune for us. We understand the significance of this project. Rest assured, we will pour our hearts into bringing it to fruition. Wang Lei nodded vigorously in agreement. Su Sun watched them, suddenly at a loss for words. He reached out and patted Zhang Ming on the shoulder. All right, give it your best. That evening, upon returning home, Su Sun opened the door to find his son hunched over the table, scribbling with a pencil on paper. He approached and sat beside him. Suja looked up, meeting his gaze. Dad, what did Zhang Ming and the others say? Su Sun remained silent, merely observing him, causing Suja to feel slightly uneasy. Dad, what's wrong? Suddenly, Su Sun reached out and lifted his son onto his lap. Suja was taken aback. Dad. Su Sun gazed at him and said, Son. Today Zhang Ming and the others bowed to me. Suja blinked in surprise. Bowed. Su Sun nodded. They expressed gratitude for the opportunity you've given them. Suja pondered for a moment, then smiled. They are quite understanding. Su Sun regarded him and suddenly asked, Son, what do you want? Suja paused. What do you mean? Su Sun clarified. I would like to give you a gift. Anything you desire, just say it. Suja stared at him for several seconds before breaking into a smile. Dad, what has gotten into you? Su Sun shook his head without responding. After a moment of thought, Suja replied, I'd like a new backpack. Su Sun was momentarily surprised. A new backpack? Suja nodded. I've had that one for 2 years, and it's got several holes. I want a new one. Su Sun looked at him, observing his little face and those bright eyes. Suddenly, he felt a pang of regret. In his pursuit of work, he had overlooked his son too often. All right, I'll buy one for you tomorrow. Suja beamed and slid off his father's lap, rushing back to the table to continue drawing. Su Sun remained seated, watching his son's small figure. Moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating that tiny silhouette. At that moment, he felt that his life was worthwhile. Chapter 30. The pain and joy of research and development. Research and development proved far more challenging than anticipated. Zhang Ming and Wang Lei immersed themselves in the laboratory for half a month straight. A thick stack of draft papers piled up on the table, and discarded circuit boards filled half a box. Progress had stalled. Zhang Ming stared at the data on the screen, his eyes unblinking. Wang Lei slumped over the table, his pen scribbling aimlessly on paper, erasing more than he wrote. Their lunchboxes lay untouched and cold. Engineer Li entered, observing the two with a sigh. Stuck again? Zhang Ming lifted his head, his eyes sunken and bloodshot. Engineer Li, this algorithm just won't work. We've tried 7 or 8 different approaches, all in vain. Li approached, scrutinizing the screen for a long moment before scratching his head. I can't make sense of this either. After a while, he turned to seek out Su Sun. Su Sun was reviewing reports in his office when Li entered. Mr. Su. Su Sun looked up, momentarily taken aback by Li's demeanor. What's the matter? Li sat down opposite him, rubbing his hands together. The research and development team is stuck. Zhang Ming and Wang Lei have been at it for half a month, and they're nearly pulling their hair out, yet still no progress. Su Sun set down his work. What seems to be the problem? Li shook his head. It's too complex. I can't comprehend it. But those boys are truly desperate. They haven't even eaten. Su Sun fell silent for a few seconds before standing up. Let us go take a look. He reached the door, then suddenly halted, glancing back at his son, who was engrossed in a book. Son, would you like to join me at the factory? Suja looked up and blinked. Sure. In the laboratory, Zhang Ming and Wang Lei remained transfixed by the screen. Su Sun pushed the door open, and neither of them noticed his arrival. Mr. Su? Zhang Ming lifted his head, surprised. Su Sun nodded and stepped in front of the screen, glancing at it briefly. Understanding nothing, he turned to look at his son, who stood beside him, gazing up at the screen. After a few seconds, Suja suddenly spoke. Uncle Zhang. Isn't there an issue with this feedback loop? Zhang Ming blinked in confusion, looking at Suja, then back at the screen. What do you mean? Suja pointed to a specific node on the screen. Here. It seems like the signal has a delay when it returns. Wouldn't it be better to use a PID algorithm? Zhang Ming stared at the node for 3 seconds before abruptly slapping the table. Yes, PID. How did I not think of that? He grabbed a pen and began to write furiously on the paper. Halfway through, he suddenly paused, looking up at Suja with a puzzled expression. Little Zhe, how do you know about the PID algorithm? Suja blinked innocently. I heard you guys talking about it. Did I mention it? Zhang Ming scrutinized him for several seconds, his expression skeptical. Then he turned back to his work, and just like that, the problem that had stumped them for half a month was resolved. However, a week later, they hit another wall. This time, it was incorrect parameters. With simulated data fluctuating wildly, Zhang Ming tried every possible parameter, yet nothing worked. Wang Lei had stayed up 2 consecutive nights, his eyes red as a rabbit's. Upon hearing the news, Su Sun returned with his son once more. Suja stood beside Wang Lei, observing him as he adjusted the settings. After a few minutes, he suddenly said, Uncle Wang, isn't this parameter set incorrectly? Wang Lei paused, looking down at the screen, then back at the code. Incorrect? Suja nodded. It should be positive. Wang Lei stared at the code for 3 seconds, then smacked his thigh. Oh no. Zhang Ming rushed over. What's wrong? Wang Lei pointed at the screen, his hand trembling. This feedback coefficient, I set it to negative. It should be positive. Zhang Ming stared for 3 seconds, then slapped Wang Lei on the back of the head. Are you out of your mind? Wang Lei rubbed the back of his head, chuckling awkwardly. Zhang Ming ignored him, turning to find Suja, who had shrunk back behind his father's legs. Zhang Ming gazed at the small figure, his expression growing increasingly complex. He recalled the previous incident involving the PID algorithm. This time, it was about the sign of the parameters. He exchanged glances with Wang Lei, who was also watching him. They held each other's gaze for several seconds. Then they all turned to the child hiding behind his father's leg. Was it merely coincidence on both occasions? Another 2 weeks passed, and the prototype returned for its first testing. It failed. The chip was burnt. Zhang Ming squatted in front of the testing station, staring at the smoking chip, motionless for a long time. Wang Lei stood beside him, his face pale with fear. Engineer Li sighed. It's normal. No prototype succeeds on the first attempt. We must revise it. Zhang Ming remained silent, fixated on the chip. Su Sun stood at the door, observing them. Suja stood beside him, watching as well. After a while, Suja suddenly spoke. Uncle Zhang, was the voltage too high? Zhang Ming was taken aback. He looked down at the chip, then at the testing data. Suddenly, he stood up. Yes, the voltage was 0. 5 volts too high? He turned to Suja, gazing at him for an extended moment. Xiaozhe, he began, his voice slightly airy. How did you know? Suja blinked. I guessed. Zhang Ming fixed his gaze on him. You guessed? Memories of the days spent developing this project flooded back to him. Each time they hit a snag, this child would casually offer a remark, and each time, he was correct. He glanced at Wang Lei, who was also looking at him. Their eyes shared a mutual understanding. There was something unusual about this child. A week later, the second version of the chip returned. This time, everyone crowded into the laboratory. Engineer Li stood at the testing station, his hands trembling. Zhang Ming and Wang Lei stood beside him, scarcely daring to breathe. Su Sun held his son, standing at the back. Let's begin, Su Sun said. Engineer Li took a deep breath, inserted the chip, and powered it on. On the screen, the data began to fluctuate. The motor whirred softly, very softly, softer than any previous attempt. The efficiency curve on the screen steadily ascended, finally resting at a number that exceeded their best previous record by 5 percentage points, enhancing efficiency by 15 compared to a standard motor. The laboratory fell silent for 3 seconds. Zhang Ming stared at the number, motionless. Then, he slowly turned his head to look at the child standing at the back. Suja was gazing up at him. Zhang Ming opened his mouth, intending to speak, but his throat felt constricted, rendering him speechless. He approached Su Zhe, squatting before him. He looked into the child's bright eyes for several seconds. Then, he suddenly asked, Xiao Zhe, would you take on a disciple? Su Zhe was momentarily taken aback. What? Zhang Ming reiterated, I wish to learn from you. Wang Lei also approached and squatted down. I want as well. Su Zhe looked at him, then at Zhang Ming. Before glancing at his father, Su Sun stood there, a smile on his lips, though his eyes were slightly red. Su Zhe turned back to face the two university students crouching before him. Uncle Zhang, you are university students. Zhang Ming nodded. Su Zhe continued. But I am only 5 years old. Zhang Ming paused, then smiled. As he laughed, his eyes glistened with emotion. What of being 5? At 5, you are far superior to us. Wang Lei nodded vigorously beside him. Su Zhe looked at them, suddenly at a loss for words. He turned to glance at his father again. Su Sun approached, squatted down, and picked him up. All right, you should thank Xiao Zhe. Zhang Ming stood up, looking at the child in Su Sun's arms. He opened his mouth to express gratitude, but what came out was, Mr. Su, how on earth did you manage to have such a son? Su Sun was taken aback, then burst into hearty laughter, nearly moved to tears. Su Zhe rolled his eyes in his father's embrace. Dad, why are you laughing again? Su Sun offered no reply, simply carrying him outside. Upon exiting the laboratory, the moonlight was splendid. Su Sun set his son down and took his hand, walking slowly. Son, he suddenly spoke. Su Zhe did not look up. Su Sun continued. Just now, Zhang Ming mentioned wanting to learn from you. Su Zhe nodded. Su Sun lowered his gaze to him. What do you think? Su Zhe pondered for a moment and replied, if they want to learn, then let them. After all, I don't know everything. Su Sun was momentarily stunned. Is there something you don't understand? Su Zhe looked up at him. Dad, that's a strange question. Su Sun was left speechless. He thought for a moment before changing the topic. Son, tomorrow is the weekend. Where would you like to go for fun? Su Zhe blinked. Fun. Su Sun nodded. To the park, the zoo, the amusement park, wherever you want to go. Su Zhe looked at him and suddenly smiled. Dad, you don't have to do that. Su Sun was taken aback. Do what? Su Zhe replied, you don't have to feel indebted to me. I enjoy doing these things. Su Sun gazed at him for several seconds. Then, he squatted down and embraced his son. Son, he buried his face in the child's small shoulder, his voice muffled. I simply want to take you out to play. Su Zhe remained still in his embrace. All right, let us go to the zoo. Su Sun released him, looking at him. The zoo? Su Zhe nodded. I want to see the elephants. Su Sun was taken aback, then smiled. All right, we'll go see the elephants tomorrow.